The magical dragon tries to summon a goddess with miraculous beauty and healing powers. However, instead of the goddess, Kim Oh Jin appears. Disoriented and confused, he assumes he must be dead and starts recalling his past life. The grueling years in vet school, frequent scoldings, finally earning his veterinary license, and then enduring 3 years of underpaid work while caring for abandoned pets. After endless struggles, our protagonist manages to open a small clinic, but it barely survives. Customers are non-existent, and even the lights on his signboard have gone out. One night, as Oh Jin lies in bed reflecting on his miserable situation and overwhelming debt, he hears a strange sound. Before he can react, our boy suddenly finds himself in a cave surrounded by treasures and a radiant summoning circle. Convinced he's ended up in hell, he demands to know why he's been brought there. The dragon explains it summoned him to treat its pet. Expecting a terrifying monster, our hero is stunned when the dragon opens its claws to reveal a small, weakly sleeping fruit bat named Catless. Observing the frail, dehydrated bat, Oh Jin immediately snaps into professional mode, asking about its name, symptoms, and how long the dragon has cared for it. Proudly, the dragon says he has owned Catless for a week, ever since keeping pets became popular among dragons. Remembering his disdain for those who adopt pets on a whim, our protagonist asks if Catless has been eating properly. The dragon confidently replies that he feeds it fresh animal blood, assuming the bat has a refined palate. Dumbfounded, Oh Jin lowers his head in disbelief, recognizing this as his least favorite kind of owner, those who know nothing about their pets. Frustrated, he informs the dragon that fruit bats don't drink blood, only vampire bats do. Catless, he explains, has been starving for a week. Embarrassed, the dragon admits it's his first time keeping a bat. Oh Jin scolds him for not researching beforehand and points out that the cave's freezing temperature could be fatal if the bat wakes from hibernation. The dragon protests that he is an ice dragon, but our boy sternly insists that this environment is still unsuitable for a bat. Feeling remorseful, the dragon lowers his head and apologizes to Catless, promising to get fruit right away and return the bat to its original home. Grateful for Oh Jin's help, the dragon offers to grant him a wish as a token of thanks. He jokingly asks to be reincarnated as a rich Arab prince or a villainous heir. Perplexed by the odd request, the dragon removes his necklace and gives it to Oh Jin, explaining that it is a magical pendant capable of granting any wish, provided it is not fueled by ill intent. As the pendant begins to glow, our protagonist concludes he must be in the afterlife. Just before vanishing, he quickly wishes to return to the early days of Bitcoin. The dragon watches as Oh Jin disappears, then hurries to prepare fruit for Catless, still puzzled by the strange goddess he had summoned. Moments later, our hero finds himself standing in a bustling street filled with people, noise, and the aroma of food. Still bewildered, he wonders if this is reincarnation or possession. A fruit seller, noticing his odd attire, asks if he is a traveler and explains that he is in the Belmore region, famous for its inns and markets. Before he can respond, chaos erupts as a giant rabbit charges down the street, devouring fallen carrots. People scream and scatter, but Oh Jin remains frozen, marveling at the sight of a monster roaming freely among people. The fruit seller warns him that it's Lord Belmore's pet and urges him to run. Then, Oh Jin spots a small girl crying in front of the rabbit. Without hesitation, our boy rushes forward, grabs her, and pulls her away just before the creature can reach her. As the rabbit lunges again, his pendant glows, and a blue leash materializes around it. The crowd gasps, murmuring that he must be a wizard. The fruit seller, clutching her sister, remarks that our protagonist doesn't look like an ordinary traveler. Lord Belmore soon arrives, furious to see his pet restrained. Oh Jin explains that the rabbit nearly attacked a child, but Belmore refuses to believe it. Losing patience, our hero snaps that the worst pet owners are those who ignore their pet's faults, warning that the rabbit's bite could easily crush a skull. The fruit seller and her sister exchange approving glances at his candor. Examining the rabbit more closely, Oh Jin notices its ears and realizes it's a domestic rabbit suffering from stress and overfeeding. When he questions its behavior, Belmore admits that the rabbit, Elizabeth, often pulls out her own fur. Oh Jin explains that such stress could be fatal and advises against taking her into crowded places. When Belmore asks about exercise, our boy suggests letting her move freely at home and discourages spoiling her. Shocked and ashamed, Belmore tears up, admitting that people ridicule him for raising a rabbit, but Oh Jin clearly understands animals better than anyone else. Belmore summons his butler, gives Oh Jin a pouch of coins, and asks him to check on Elizabeth from time to time. After apologizing to his pet, he leaves with her, while our protagonist mutters under his breath that he won't be visiting this place again. Suddenly, people gather around, cheering and praising Oh Jin's bravery. The fruit seller thanks him for saving her stall and offers him a discount. But when our hero explains he has no money, she points to the pouch. Opening it, he discovers gold coins and bites one to confirm it's real. Realizing it is, our boy smiles faintly, thinking that perhaps he can finally open another clinic here and pay off his debts from the human world. Oh Jin thanks all the interviewers who have come for the job selection and, half amused, remarks that he hopes one of them will be chosen. He then announces it's time to begin the interview, calling it a game of life and death. Briefly, our protagonist's thoughts drift to Lord Belmore, who had generously offered land and money when Oh Jin decided to settle down in this new place. Thanks to that support, the second branch of his pet clinic opens without trouble. Lord Belmore even prepares a shop for him, though it's oddly stocked with rabbit supplies. Still, our boy doesn't mind. After all, it's free, and his connection with Belmore already seems invaluable. Business soon takes over Oh Jin's days, but he realizes he knows very little about this world, especially about the dragon who brought him here. That creature had promised to send him home, only to abandon him in this strange land. Determined to find answers, our hero decides to post a notice outside his new shop, Animal Hospital Hiring Staff. Maybe he'll find someone who can manage both assistant and technician duties. When interviews begin, Oh Jin sits upright, studying the line of applicants. The first candidate, Thomas, proudly discusses his noble background, strict father, and gentle mother. Our protagonist listens for a moment, but soon grows weary of the man's self-importance. The next candidate, Philip, claims his family has been in the animal business for generations. This sounds promising at first, until he reveals they run a butcher shop. That's enough for Oh Jin to mentally cross him off the list. Apparently, finding normal people in this world is more challenging than expected. The third candidate steps forward, a man with a pale, tense expression and eyes that spell trouble. Our boy reminds himself not to judge by appearances, but his patience snaps when the man suddenly throws himself to the floor, begging to be hired. That seals it. Oh Jin decides he will absolutely judge people by how they look from now on. Before he can respond, a young woman steps out from the line of applicants. Without a word, she punches the man in the face, sending him flying across the room. She introduces herself as Selena, a roaming animal expert with experience in basic treatments. Her confidence and composure leave a strong impression, so Oh Jin hires her on the spot. The next afternoon, our protagonist sits inside his cozy new clinic, basking in the warm sunlight streaming through the window. It's already noon, and Selena still hasn't shown up. Maybe he hired too hastily again. He debates whether to post another job notice when there's a knock at the door. Expecting his new assistant, he opens it, only to find an unfamiliar man standing there. Minutes later, the man is seated comfortably, sipping tea while Oh Jin smiles politely. Inside, though, our hero is celebrating. He's finally gotten his first customer, marking the first step toward paying off his debts. He thinks back to his previous clinic, the one that failed due to his short temper. He vividly remembers snapping at a customer who refused to brush their dog's teeth, yelling until his reputation as a rude and insane vet spread like wildfire. This time, however, Oh Jin resolves to smile, stay calm, and charm money right out of his clients' wallets. Returning to the present, he asks about the man's pet. The stranger grins and points to his pocket, revealing a small lizard named Pojak. Our boy is almost relieved. It appears to be a normal creature for once, rather than one of the bizarre animals that usually populate this world. That relief is short-lived when the man casually admits to grabbing its tail until it fell off. Oh Jin fights the urge to scold him and shifts his focus to the lizard. He carefully examines Pojak and notices its skin is dry and red, clear signs of improper shedding. When he mentions this, the man warns that Pojak can be aggressive. Almost immediately, the little creature proves him right by spitting a burst of fire straight at our protagonist. Before Oh Jin can react, Selena bursts through the door and knocks him aside, saving him from the attack. The flames scorch the wall behind them. Dazed and bleeding slightly from his mouth, Oh Jin mutters that getting hit might have been less painful. As he regains his composure, he realizes his first patient at the new branch is a salamander, a fire-breathing lizard that can't be handled bare-handed. He wonders if the clinic even has anything fireproof. Meanwhile, the man gazes dreamily at Selena, calling her beautiful, while she questions him about where he found the creature. He proudly explains he picked it up from the mountain behind the village, claiming it was love at first sight. Selena tells him that keeping a salamander is illegal, as they're endangered due to overhunting. Still, she reassures him that if they claim to be holding it temporarily for medical treatment, the authorities will likely overlook it as long as he releases the animal afterward. However, the man clutches Pojak tightly, his eyes filling with tears, and refuses to let go. Suddenly he bolts for the door, shouting that no one can separate him from his beloved salamander. Oh Jin stands in disbelief, staring at the open doorway. Selena hesitates for a moment before our hero snaps at her to go after him. And just like that, the clinic's very first examination turns into a ridiculous chase through town, a fitting beginning to another unpredictable chapter in Oh Jin's new life. Oh Jin sends Selena ahead to chase after the man, and the market bursts into motion. The fruit stall lady, who had just been humming about how peaceful things felt without the Lord Reverend's constant interference, quickly realizes that peace never lasts. She ducks behind her stall as the commotion sweeps by, deciding it's best to remain uninvolved. The man darts through the crowd, clutching something tightly to his chest with desperate determination, while our boy follows, out of breath but unwilling to give up. The stall lady watches the chaos and murmurs that whatever is happening, it's not her concern. The fleeing man mutters frantically about people trying to steal Pojak from him. Our protagonist and Selina continue the chase until exhaustion finally slows them down. Catching her breath, she remarks that Oh Jin could use more exercise, then refocuses on the salamander's urgent condition. He admits the creature's molt has layered dangerously and requires immediate help. Selina's expression hardens as she recalls the risk. A salamander that fails to molt will eventually erupt, its inner fire destroying everything nearby. There's no time to rest. They must find the creature before disaster strikes. Meanwhile, believing he's safe, the man returns home. Relieved, he places Pojak on the table, calling it fate that they're together. His euphoria quickly transforms into artistic inspiration as he begins to sing, letting a strange melody fill the air. Suddenly, panic replaces his creative mood when Pojak's body trembles and bursts into flames. In moments, his home is engulfed in fire. Coughing amid the smoke, the man tries to reason with the salamander, reaching out as though affection could calm the blaze. Pojak answers with another fiery blast, the flames growing even fiercer. Selina arrives just in time to drag the man to safety, while our hero braces himself against the heat, determined to restrain the creature gone wild. He ruefully thinks a fire extinguisher would be useful right about now, then his pendant glows. When the light fades, Oh Jin finds exactly that in his hand. There's no time to question this miracle. He rushes forward, dousing the flames until the salamander's resistance fades and the room falls quiet, save for the faint hiss of steam. As the fire dies away, Selina checks their surroundings. The man sits amid the ruins, muttering that the rampage must have been caused by the failed molt. He insists he'll care for Pojak better next time, his tone clinging to misplaced affection. Our protagonist regards him quietly, wondering if the man has any idea what true care means. Love without understanding, Oh Jin thinks, is just selfishness dressed up as devotion. Later, in the forest, Pojak has finally molted. Selina notes how much livelier it looks, while our boy stares at its size in disbelief. The man gazes at the salamander with bittersweet pride, murmuring that it's time to let it return to the wild. He watches as Pojak disappears among the trees, whispering promises of care and remembrance that no creature could possibly understand. Oh Jin rolls his eyes at the sentiment, thinking this will only bring more trouble, but the man barely notices. In his own mind, this farewell is noble. The moment unexpectedly turns tender as Pojak pauses on a distant rock and releases a massive fireball into the sky. The flames bloom into radiant fireworks, painting dusk in brilliant color. The man stares upward, overcome with emotion, while our protagonist quietly acknowledges that the treatment, at last, is complete. Days later, the same man reappears in the town square, now calling himself Roisha. He plays guitar beside the fountain, children dancing around him as he sings an eccentric tune about Oh Jin's adventures. The song spreads like wildfire, lifting the spirits of everyone who hears it. Selina observes from afar, half amused, while our hero stands beside her, unimpressed, but faintly curious. When he notices people talking about bringing their pets to him, Oh Jin even finds himself praising Roisha's singing. Soon after, the consequences arrive. Outside Oh Jin's pet clinic, a crowd forms so large it blocks the entire street. Dozens shout his name, demanding treatment and desperate for attention. Our boy sits frozen, realizing his quiet days are over. Selina, eyeing the endless line, mutters that she might as well resign. Amid the clamor and confusion, Oh Jin realizes their little clinic has, quite accidentally, become the busiest place in town. It's a regular morning, birds chirping outside Oh Jin's clinic as a long line of people gathers at the door. He finishes examining a patient and lets them know the session is over, advising a follow-up to check progress. Selina stands beside him, commenting that at this rate he'll become a corpse before next week and should earn while he can. Our boy calls for the next patient, reflecting on how it's been 2 months since opening and the second clinic is thriving, thanks in part to those cheerful morning birds. The first few days were rough with so many customers, but after seeing the earnings, things settled down. A customer pokes their head in and asks if they're still open. Selina immediately says they're closed, but Oh Jin lets the person in anyway. While treating the patient, our protagonist reflects on what he's learned about this world. Outside, people chat about their pets. One mentions Coco hasn't been eating well. Another points out a cat's bloodshot eye. Dogs and cats remain close to humans here, though their illnesses can be quite different. Later, Oh Jin stretches, remarking that the day has been exhausting. Selina informs him the next case is the last. Curious, he asks what animal it is, and Selina explains it's a shaman, once used for hunting, now popular pets, but aggressive toward anyone except their owners, leading to the highest abandonment rate. Our hero mutters that people who buy pets just to follow trends ought to disappear. He recalls hearing that shamans can grow as tall as a person's torso, with claws and teeth sharp enough to pierce a wild boar's hide. Selina warns him to be careful. The next customer presents a shaman pup, visibly exhausted and only 2 months old. The owner explains it's been limping since yesterday. Oh Jin examines the leg, noting a puppy this age should have healthy joints. Checking the paw, he finds a thorn lodged in it, removes it with tweezers, disinfects the wound, and assures them it will heal. The little shaman wobbles around, and our protagonist watches quietly while Selena glances over, mildly curious. As the owner leaves, Oh Jin sighs in relief, saying the day is finally over. Selena observes that he looked happy. He seems puzzled when she asks whether it's because the puppy was cute or because his shift has ended. Selena teases that it's rare to see him happy for reasons other than money. Oh Jin replies that none of today's patients were seriously injured and explains that the hardest part of being a vet is seeing sick animals. The more he cares, the more it hurts, so he tries to remain detached. His thoughts wander to a customer from his old world, someone who left their pet for an extra month while vacationing. Our boy recalls greeting them sharply and realizes that since then, he started scolding guardians more often. As closing time approaches, Selena notes it's getting dark. Oh Jin mentions the large number of customers and urges her to move faster before sunset. Suddenly, the same man from the interview appears outside, calling for help. Oh Jin turns to Selena, asking if she can handle exorcisms. She responds that maybe she could, if physical attacks actually worked on spirits. The man bursts in, grabs our protagonist, and drags him out through the window, leaving Selena speechless. Later, in the forest, Oh Jin lies on the ground while the man apologizes repeatedly, insisting he didn't expect our hero to be so out of shape that he couldn't climb a hill. Oh Jin demands to know who he is, realizing this isn't a ghost. The man introduces himself as Schwein, an administrative civil servant for the territory, and explains he brought our protagonist there after hearing about his talent for calming the Lord's rabbit. Schwein asks him to catch a stray dog. Oh Jin refuses, arguing he's a vet, not an animal rescuer. Selena, appearing nearby, adds pointedly that they're not a rescue team. Schwein insists they're the only hope left, explaining that 2 months ago the stray took over a spot in the middle of the mountain, right where their new trail construction is set to begin. They've tried to catch it, but the dog is too fast, and construction starts the day after tomorrow. If they can't capture it, troops will be sent, and the animal will be killed on sight. Our hero falls silent before finally asking where the dog is now, clarifying he's never captured animals and only wants to observe first. Schwein agrees, saying it's a bit further up the mountain. Oh Jin reminds him he hasn't agreed yet. He's just there to take a look. Selena, with a knowing smile, remarks that he's definitely going to end up doing it. At the site, Schwein points out where the stray usually stays. Suddenly, a noise catches their attention, and a shaman emerges from the shadows. Oh Jin recognizes it at once, while Selena notes that many people raise shamans, but just as many end up abandoning them. Many people keep shamans these days because it has become a trend, yet most end up neglected and forgotten. When Oh Jin observes the state of the shaman before him, he can tell it has been surviving alone for nearly 2 months, and probably hasn't eaten properly that entire time. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes from the forest, startling everyone. Assuming it to be some sort of monster, our protagonist turns toward the noise, just as the shaman lets out a piercing shriek and lunges at him. Selena swiftly steps in, pulling our boy out of harm's way and warning that it's dangerous to stay so close. Oh Jin remarks that turning your back and running from an enraged dog is the worst possible reaction, while Selena retorts that doing nothing would just let the animal tear them apart. Then our hero explains that running will only provoke the creature further. They need to find a way to divert its focus. Before he can finish his thought, the shaman unexpectedly goes still. Everyone freezes, stunned by the sudden calm, and our protagonist wonders aloud why it stopped. He recalls Schwein describing the animal as a hunting dog and points out that such a creature, if truly angered, wouldn't retreat so easily. Yet right before their eyes, the shaman quietly wanders back into the forest. Selena mutters that no one can truly grasp what goes on in a dog's mind. Meanwhile, Schwein explains how the creature frequently chases people away, its behavior having become such a nuisance that villagers from the nearby settlement send in constant complaints. As Oh Jin listens, he sinks into thought before curiosity takes hold. He asks what kind of complaints they've received, and Schwein describes how the locals refer to the animal as a vicious beast that roams the mountain, one they consider dangerous and demand to be captured. Our hero reflects on this, then wonders aloud if anyone has ever actually been injured by it. Schwein starts to agree instinctively, but, after pausing for a moment, admits that not a single person has ever been harmed. Turning to Selena, our protagonist recalls that she once mentioned the loyalty of shamans toward their masters, and asks if she still believes it. Selena confirms that she does, and Oh Jin's expression shifts slightly, as though something has just clicked in his mind. The next morning, Oh Jin and Selena set out toward the nearest village at the base of the mountain. Their focus shifts from confronting the stray to uncovering the story behind it. Now, our boy seeks the dog's former owner, believing that understanding its past is the key to reaching it. Though time is short and other methods might seem easier, he knows that simply trapping the animal with food will not work. The dog's frail, hungry body speaks of something stronger than instinct, an unbroken bond that hunger cannot override. As they walk, memories and thoughts intertwine in Oh Jin's mind. He remembers how some owners issue a gentle command for their pets to stay, assuring them they'll return soon, only to disappear and never come back. That same kind of loyalty and betrayal must lie at the heart of this dog's suffering. Our protagonist has seen people capable of abandoning those who trust them most, and the idea fills him with quiet anger. Resolute, our hero promises himself that when they finally uncover the owner, that person will be forced to confront what they've done and witness how the loyal creature they left behind has endured. As they begin making inquiries throughout the village, a pattern quickly emerges. A local tells Oh Jin that a woman named Gabrielle's husband has been unable to continue his work because of the dog that roams the mountain. Parents refuse to let their children near the forest, fearful of what lurks there, and even passing youngsters echo the same stories of danger. An old man vaguely mutters about losing money many years ago, though his words seem disconnected from the rest. Still, one truth becomes clear. The entire village harbors a deep resentment toward the stray. After hours of questioning, our boy and Selena stop at a quiet corner of the street, weary from hearing the same fearful accounts. Oh Jin begins to suspect that perhaps the dog's owner isn't from this village at all. Selena agrees, noting that if nothing else, everyone they've met shares a common hostility toward the animal. It's then that a woman with long hair approaches them. She has overheard their questions and, with a solemn expression, mentions that they're looking for Jake, the man who once owned the dog. She urges them to follow her and leads them toward Jake's house. Oh Jin notices how distant the home is, almost hidden among the trees, and the woman explains that Jake lived alone, separated from the villagers, which is why so few people knew him. When they reach the small wooden house, she stops near a modest grave by the entrance and quietly reveals that Jake died 2 months earlier in a landslide. She explains he had no family and that she herself arranged the funeral. Furthermore, she insists that Jake never abandoned his dog, he simply never made it back. The woman also confesses she once tried to bring the dog home but failed, and now, with sadness heavy in her tone, she begs them to help the animal, whom she calls Max. The weight of her words sinks deeply into Oh Jin. A quiet remorse fills him as he realizes how wrongly he had judged the situation. Our hero offers a silent prayer for Jake's peace, expressing his regret, and makes a firm promise that they will save Max, no matter what it requires. Later, back in the forest, Schwein remarks to the officers who have just arrived that he expected them the following day, noting they must have finished their prior mission earlier than anticipated. He suggests postponing their current task, to kill Max, until tomorrow, but the officers dismiss the idea. One of them insists there's no reason to wait, and that the matter should be handled immediately. Since the villagers already despise the dog, he reasons, no one will object if they ended a day ahead of schedule. Back at Jake's house, Oh Jin steps inside and immediately notices the scent of herbal medicine lingering in the air, a clear sign that Jake was a herbalist. Selena suggests taking anything carrying the owner's scent for now, and points toward some clothes hanging nearby. Our hero's eyes drift to a photo frame on the shelf, showing Jake and Max together. He wonders what could have happened to someone who cared so deeply for his dog. Then Selena notices a photograph on the wall and points it out. It's a picture of a mandrake. She remarks that Jake must have been searching for one. Our boy recalls seeing a mandrake in a movie once, and Selena explains that it's the plant that screams, a rare and extremely difficult specimen to collect. Both remember the strange noise from the forest the previous day. Despite its danger, the mandrake is incredibly valuable, something every herbalist dreams of finding. Meanwhile, Max sits in front of his cave, staring at the sky, lost in thought as he remembers his owner. It was raining that day when he and Jake took shelter inside the cave. Jake laughed at the sudden downpour, wondering if they should wait until it stopped before heading out. Lighting a fire, he placed a woolen blanket over Max, telling him to stay still or he'd catch a cold. Max cuddled close, and Jake, though exhausted, smiled and said they were lucky to have found shelter. While looking around, Jake noticed a plant growing near the cave wall. Recognizing the shape of its leaves, he realized it was a mandrake. Astonished, he admitted he never thought he'd see one outside of books. Excited, he decided to return home to get his gear, telling Max to wait and promising he'd be right back. Max barked softly, but Jake reassured him it wasn't far. Smiling, he stepped out into the rain. Then, a sudden landslide of massive rocks came crashing down, killing him instantly. Time passed. The fire in the cave died out, but Max continued to wait faithfully. The next week, some tourists passed by. One of them noticed the dog had been there for a while. They assumed he'd been abandoned and, feeling pity, decided to feed him. But when they approached, Max shrieked and backed away in fear, driving them off. Startled, the tourists left, muttering that the dog was dangerous and that it was no wonder the owner had left it. Max returned to the cave and sat again, waiting for Jake, unaware he would never return. In the present, as Max recalls Jake, the officers approach. One suggests there's no need to rush since it's getting late. They should head to the lodge soon. Standing before Max, they ready their tranquilizer darts, enough to take down a shaman. Schwein pleads with them to wait 1 more hour, explaining that he's hired someone to help rescue the dog. From what Schwein has seen, Max has never hurt anyone and is simply a dog with a story. The officer, unmoved, says they aren't there to listen to a dog's story. Their job is to protect the residents, and that's all that matters. As he raises his gun and aims, Max pants heavily. Just as the officer is about to pull the trigger, Selena and Oh Jin arrive, stopping him. Selena insists they must rescue the stray, not harm it. At that moment, Max sees an illusion of his owner standing before him, smiling gently. The figure tells him that he's come to get him and that Max has waited a long time. Overcome with joy, Max moves forward, tail wagging, believing his owner has finally returned. Our protagonist steps closer, his voice low and soft as he admits he isn't the one Max has been waiting for, but tells him it's time to go home. A lone night settles over the forest, where a deer runs for its life, chased by a wild creature whose glowing yellow eyes cut through the darkness. Its sharp shriek echoes through the trees, shattering the stillness of the woods. By morning, the quiet inside Oh Jin's clinic is disrupted as a customer bursts in, frantically begging for help with their pet. Our hero looks down to find a ping-ping panda so overweight it can hardly roll over. He mutters in disbelief while the owner insists the panda has grown weak and barely eats, only 7 meals a day now. Oh Jin sighs, warning that if it doesn't regain a healthy weight, it could fall gravely ill. The owner looks shocked, unwilling to believe it, and our boy calls for the next patient without another word. Schwein steps in with his usual courteous smile, greeting our protagonist politely. The sight of him reminds Oh Jin of Max, the dog that once came down from the mountain after losing his owner. Max had lingered for days by his master's grave, unable to accept Jake's death, pitied by everyone in the village until he finally opened up to the one who visited and cared for him, Schwein. When Oh Jin asks what brings him there and if something has happened to Max, Schwein denies it and instead reveals a mandrake plant from his bag. Selena notices something odd about it. Its root is exposed above the soil, unlike most mandrakes that prefer to stay buried deep. Schwein explains that Jake, before his passing, had discovered the mandrake and decided to keep it as a memento. Yet, when they tried to replant it, the mandrake kept forcing itself out of the ground, screaming endlessly day and night until everyone in the village was forced to wear earplugs. Some even suffered ruptured eardrums. Selena mentions that such behavior can happen, as mandrakes are known to be temperamental about their surroundings. Schwein sighs that the plant has become impossible to manage, noting that it is quiet now only because it is asleep, but once it wakes, chaos begins. He pleads for Oh Jin to take it. Our protagonist refuses, insisting he treats animals, not plants, and that anything that screams can't even be considered one. Schwein insists it is neither plant nor animal but something far worse, a demon. Oh Jin retorts that if that's the case, the church would be a better place to take it. Before another word is exchanged, the mandrake stirs. Schwein panics, shouting that it's waking and hastily leaves it behind, fleeing the clinic with his companions before our hero can stop them. Frustrated, Oh Jin curses after them, muttering that he's seen people abandon many things but never a plant. Selena quickly covers the mandrake with a glass shield and reminds him that mandrakes are valuable herbs. Every part of them, from leaf to root, can revive the dying. Our boy grumbles about their worth if they can't be controlled. Suddenly, the mandrake opens its eyes. Selena warns him to cover his ears before it screams, fearing for their eardrums. Oh Jin, panicking, complains about his missing noise-canceling headphones and braces himself. But instead of screaming, the mandrake smiles. Confused, he watches as Selena studies its behavior. She realizes it seems to like him and asks him to take out his necklace. As soon as he does, the mandrake's eyes widen and it begins dancing with joy. Our protagonist can hardly believe it, while Selena laughs, saying it looks as happy as a sunflower toy she once saw. He mutters about how disgusting that comparison sounds, but Selena simply tells him to raise it in his room for now. Despite his protests, he ends up doing just that. Later that night, a loud knock wakes our hero. Half asleep, he complains that night visits cost extra until a woman rushes in with a wounded dog bleeding heavily. Seeing the deep gashes, our protagonist mutters that the injuries are too severe to stop the bleeding. Selena reminds him that mandrake leaves have strong clotting properties, and at his instruction, she approaches the plant. The mandrake watches her suspiciously, so she hesitates, suggesting Oh Jin should ask it himself. He grumbles at the absurdity of asking a plant for permission, but does it anyway. As soon as he asks for a leaf, the mandrake smiles, dances, and hums softly. Though baffled, our boy takes the leaf and manages to stop the bleeding, saving the dog's life. The woman weeps with gratitude as our protagonist yawns and tells her to return for follow-up care before heading back to bed. Only half an hour later, another urgent knock disturbs his rest. This time, a man stands at the door with a mauled deer in his arms, begging for help. The animal's body is covered in brutal wounds, and Oh Jin grimly notes that they aren't from hunting, but from someone who seemed to enjoy the cruelty. He mutters about a psychopath being responsible, confusing the villagers, who ask if that is some kind of new monster. When a little girl quietly explains that it is Baron Doyle's pet wolf who does such things for amusement, our protagonist's disbelief turns into outrage. He curses the noble, demanding to know how such behavior is allowed, shouting about the lack of animal protection laws. The villagers remind him that the Baron is untouchable, a noble. Our hero rails against the injustice, shouting about freedom, law, and democracy, concepts the others have never even heard of, until Selena reminds him to focus on treating the deer. A week later, chaos erupts outside the clinic. A large crowd gathers, all shouting for the doctor to save their pets. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Oh Jin joins the uproar, ranting that he can't live like this anymore and calling for a class revolution. Our boy leads the crowd toward Doyle's mansion, chanting accusations against the Baron and demanding justice for the abused animals until the Baron's guards arrive. When they ask for our protagonist, he mutters that their intelligence is scarily fast and steps forward, claiming his name. To his surprise, the guards bow and respectfully escort him to the castle. Inside, he finds a massive blood-fanged wolf lying on the floor, gravely wounded. Baron Doyle stands beside it, desperate, begging Oh Jin to save his beloved pet, promising anything in return. Our hero and Selina stand frozen, stunned by the sight of the very creature that had caused so much suffering. After a week of beast attacks, the townspeople gather, whispering about a magical creature spotted in the western forest. Rumors spread that the banished wolf has been killed and a giant man-eating monster now stalks the woods, attacking people after preying on animals. Fear sweeps through the crowd. Some believe the village is doomed and talk of fleeing to the lower settlement. Others insist there's no need to worry since Baron Doyle has launched a monster subjugation operation. They mention a massive trap set in the forest and soldiers patrolling day and night. The villagers praise the Baron as dependable, convinced they live safely under his protection. Our hero listens, fully aware the truth is quite different. He recalls seeing the Baron weeping and shouting for his men to catch the monster that attacked his child, while his servants worked to calm him and quietly handled the situation. To Oh Jin, the scene resembles media manipulation from his own world. Selina stands beside him, noticing the wary look on his face. Our protagonist reflects that most of the injured animals brought to the clinic were attacked near the eastern forest, close to the village, while the incident with the Baron's wolf happened deep in the west. Despite this, the Baron's men continue to focus their search on the western woods, ignoring the east entirely. Selina finds it suspicious as well. The villagers rarely set foot in the western forest, a place rumored to be haunted. As they discuss, a man from the glass workshop calls them inside, announcing that the items Oh Jin ordered, the syringes, are ready. They are mouth-blown, reinforced glass mixed with albarium powder, resistant to heat and shock. Our protagonist examines them, impressed by the craftsmanship, calling the technology remarkable and marveling that they are handmade. The craftsman confides that the process was difficult and insists he cannot make more. Oh Jin pays him generously, establishing a partnership despite the man's reluctance. Gradually, the clinic fills with several new pieces of equipment. Renovations begin, and Selina inspects the layout, surprised by the organized, modern structure. Our boy thinks to himself that this finally feels like a real hospital. One day a man enters carrying bundles of herbs. He presents a variety with fascinating effects. Some induce sleep when consumed or inhaled, others relieve stomach pain or prevent coughing, and one herb has antiseptic properties. Oh Jin examines them in disbelief, finding their effects extraordinary, some even rumored to treat fatal diseases. He mutters that nothing like this exists even in his world, while Selina mocks his skepticism. Suddenly, a girl dashes in, calling for Oh Jin to come quickly because the monster has been caught. In the forest, soldiers, hounds, and Baron Doyle stand gathered around the shattered trap, a roaring sound echoing through the trees. The soldiers push forward, claiming the monster is cornered. As our hero approaches, the creature's shadow appears, only to reveal a small cat, crying angrily. Everyone falls silent. The soldiers hesitate, noting it looks like an ordinary street cat, but the Baron insists it is the very creature that terrified his wolf, pointing to its claws and teeth as proof of its evil nature. Oh Jin realizes the soldiers are serious as they throw a net over the cat. The animal struggles and cries as the Baron laughs, ordering it to be burned. Our protagonist objects, but the Baron demands the cat be dragged alive for public execution. Watching the terrified animal, our hero is reminded of his own world, where a man once brought an injured cat to his clinic, explaining he used to feed it in the shopping district before someone hurt it. Oh Jin had called such people demons, despising animal abusers above all else. Back in the present, the cat tears through the net, sending the soldiers into a panic as they shout to trap it again. Suddenly our boy gets an idea. He yells for everyone to cover their mouths and noses, then points at the cat's forehead. A scar shaped like the letter M glows faintly above its brow. He declares it the mark of a great demon, the one that brings global plague, the mark of Corona, the great pandemic. Oh Jin declares the cat to be a demon, the very embodiment of the Great Plague, claiming the infection first spread through rats, then passed to a cat that devoured the infected rodents and absorbed their dark magic, becoming an even stronger carrier of disease. According to our protagonist, this cat is the source of the coming disaster. Once the illness begins to spread, he warns, half the population will disappear. The people, already ready to kill the cat, listen in disbelief. The soldiers scoff at his claim, and even Baron Doyle presses for the truth, doubting our hero's story. Despite their skepticism, Oh Jin stands firm, recalling a world much like this one that once waged war against a similar plague, a world filled with masks, fear, and chaos. He insists the creature may indeed carry demonic energy, but is still young enough to suppress. Our boy adds that, in his world, a cure was found, and the same might be possible here. Turning to Selena, Oh Jin silently hopes she'll back his bluff. She does, calmly explaining that with the cat's blood and the right herbs, it might be possible to create a cure. Outwardly composed, our hero worries his ruse might fail. The soldiers mock the story as foolish, but before tensions rise further, the Baron grants Oh Jin a week. Within that time, he is to heal the creature and present it at the castle, after which the cat will be executed publicly. Back at the clinic, our protagonist exhales in relief, thanking Selena for her quick thinking, and impressed at how convincingly she played along. She replies that she hadn't lied. Technically, a cure could be made using the creature and mandrake roots, though it would require hundreds of mandrakes. She asks why he wants to save the animal, warning that once it awakens, its strength may be impossible to control. Oh Jin explains that this cat isn't the one responsible for the village attacks. He shows records of animal injuries, pointing out that the wounds differ in both size and shape from those the cat could have inflicted. The pattern suggests a completely different predator. Selena quickly realizes the truth. Magma, Baron Doyle's wolf, must have been the real culprit, and the cat merely defended itself. Our protagonist agrees, but finds it suspicious that the Baron, who once hid Magma's attacks, suddenly blames another beast and starts a public hunt. He suspects the hunt is simply a cover, with the cat as the true target. Selena observes that this would explain why the Baron wanted the creature captured alive rather than killed, and why he accepted Oh Jin's shaky explanation so easily. The remark about his clumsy lie irritates our hero, but his attention soon shifts to the cat's wounds. The scar on its forehead isn't a normal injury, and old marks along its legs suggest long-term suffering. He resolves to uncover the truth about what this creature has endured. Selena watches him closely, realizing he isn't the greedy, indifferent vet she once believed him to be. There's a gentleness in the way he handles the animal, until our boy suddenly hugs the cat, burying his face in its fur and calling it soft and warm. The scene erases Selena's old impression, convincing her that Oh Jin is simply insane, while the nearby mandrake smolders with jealousy. The next morning, eerie cries echo from outside the clinic. Townsfolk gather, whispering in awe and fear about the strange sounds. Rumors spread rapidly, claiming our hero is battling a demon and purifying the source of the plague. Within hours, public opinion transforms him into a legend, a wizard from another world. The crowd chants his name, hailing Kim Oh Jin as the Great Wizard. Inside, unaware of the growing commotion, our protagonist tries to feed the cat, only to have it scratch his face again. The creature's temper irks him, but he notices it appears smaller than before. Selena points out that its size and weight have both decreased over the past 3 days, and she speculates it might be losing demonic energy. Oh Jin concludes it's simply starving. Hunger is fueling its anger, burning away energy and deepening its hunger in a vicious cycle. As our hero wishes for the demonic snack known as Koro, a sudden pain grips his chest. The dragon's necklace around his neck glows, releasing light that solidifies into a familiar chocolate-like treat. The snack shoots straight into the cat's mouth, and it starts chewing happily. Oh Jin, relieved, continues feeding it with growing affection, while Selena watches in silent disbelief. As the cat eats, the scar on its forehead begins to glow faintly. Selena freezes, suddenly realizing everything makes sense. The creature before them was never just a cat. Monoceros, the horned lion, once reigned as a mythical beast during the era when dragons vanished and mana surged across the world. Revered as sacred, their horns blessed barren lands with water and turned darkness into light. Their hearts held the miraculous power to generate mana, and the horn on their foreheads served as a divine channel through which that energy flowed. Yet, those who dared touch them met inevitable death. After the great mana famine, their kind dwindled, forcing them to disguise themselves as smaller creatures to survive. Though weakened, they never lost the pride of their divine lineage and could never be tamed by mortals, except by one entity, the spirit of healing. At the clinic, the small cat finally passes stool, and Oh Jin, relieved, praises it while feeding it choro. Selena, watching, wonders whether it's wise to keep luring the creature with the demonic treat. That same night, at Baron Doyle's mansion, a spy reports to him that the cat has been eating obediently, and that our boy holds it in his arms like a child. The Baron, doubtful, listens as his soldiers kneel beside him, their voices uneasy. They speak of the devil's lion and the rumored plague, warning that the creature may not be ordinary. They recall that no human has ever tamed a monoceros, even a weakened one. In the worst cases, the mana inside their bodies can corrupt into poison, turning them into living bombs. Their power, they say, could bring an entire nation to ruin. Baron Doyle, unsettled, remembers Oh Jin's words about a plague that once consumed his world, a battle humanity fought for years. He also recalls that monoceros were said to reject all food offered by humans. Now he begins to wonder whether our protagonist knows something no one else does. The following morning, the clinic hums with activity. The new assistant, P.O., acting as receptionist, calls for the next patient to enter the exam room. The space feels lively and organized, just as a proper clinic should. Meanwhile, Selena scolds a noisy patient whose animal refuses to stay still. Her irritation grows, and in a flash of temper, she silences the commotion with magic, startling everyone. Oh Jin watches, horrified as she repeats her spell on another customer, creating chaos inside the clinic. Then, without warning, Selena requests a sudden half-day leave and disappears. Again. Later, our protagonist discovers her handwritten note declaring her absence without leave. The sloppy calligraphy only fuels his frustration. He rants that even real veterinarians wouldn't act so unprofessionally. Desperate for help, that's why he calls on Pio, a nearby acquaintance, to fill in temporarily. To his surprise, Pio proves exceptionally capable, handling clients, lifting supplies, and maintaining order with cheerful diligence. Her work ethic impresses our hero so much that he starts considering her for a permanent position. Amid the busy day, Oh Jin notices something odd. The clinic, normally filled with animal noises, has suddenly fallen silent. The next morning, the mystery reveals itself when a familiar patient returns. Ping Ping the hamster. Oh Jin stares in disbelief. The creature that once weighed barely half a kilogram now appears 10 times larger, nearly the size of a small dog. He wonders aloud if it's turned into a panda. The owner corrects him, calling it a flopper dog. Only then does our boy realize that in this world, hamsters go by a different name. The owner, puzzled by his reaction, asks if he knows what a flopper is. Oh Jin tries to cover up, but Pio steps in smoothly, explaining that he comes from another world, which is why he uses different terms, and why his medical knowledge surpasses local understanding. Flattered, our protagonist listens as the owner concludes that he must have studied abroad. Proud and amused, he immediately hires Pio as a permanent staff member. Turning back to Ping Ping, Oh Jin examines its oversized body. The creature appears healthy, though its unusual color and size raise questions. He speculates it may have absorbed some sort of growth magic. As he observes, the cat beside him grows visibly jealous and leaps toward the hamster. The moment it makes contact, Ping Ping splits into 3 identical copies. Everyone in the clinic freezes. Oh Jin struggles to process what he's seeing, mentally protesting that it violates every law of physics he knows. The owner, overjoyed, hugs the 3 creatures, declaring that after years of loneliness, Ping Ping finally has a family. One of the smaller copies bolts across the room, triggering a chaotic chase through the clinic. The creature's tiny bodies make them impossibly fast, adding to the commotion. Selena suddenly returns, appearing out of nowhere. With effortless precision, she captures all 3, 2 in her hands and 1 between her teeth, and declares them to be bloops. When questioned about their origin, the owner admits he received the creature as a gift from his father, unaware of its true nature. Selena decides to keep them for observation, assuring the owner that no harm will come to them. Oh Jin adds that the clinic never engages in unethical experiments, and that nothing happens without a guardian's consent, though inwardly he wonders why he's the one making moral speeches. Later that evening, Selena explains that bloops aren't natural creatures at all, but artificial beings created by a mad mage long ago. Our hero is astonished, realizing even this world has its own unhinged scientists. Selena insists the mage wasn't entirely evil, just misguided, and that his creations, though unstable, were never meant to harm. Oh Jin comments that bloops were supposed to have vanished a century ago, and is surprised to encounter one after so long. Curiosity gets the better of him, and he casually asks Selena just how old she is. Before she can reply, a strange gurgling sound comes from the skunja nearby. Our protagonist turns toward it in concern, only for a knock to interrupt him. From behind the door, a soldier's voice announces that Baron Doyle has arrived. As Lord Baron steps into Oh Jin's clinic declaring that he'll bring out the monster, our protagonist is swept by quiet panic, torn between hiding the cat or helping it escape within the week. He hasn't had time to prepare. Every moment has been consumed by caring for the creature. Forcing a nervous smile, our hero greets the noble politely, his mind drifting to Selena, already gone and leaving him to face the mess alone. The Baron sits heavily, uninterested in pleasantries, refusing even the offer of tea and demanding to see the monster immediately. Oh Jin hesitates, mumbling that the treatment isn't yet finished, but Baron coldly points out that if the clinic is still open, the cure must be complete. Our boy quickly invents a wild story. A mishap during the exorcism caused a mysterious imprint to appear between him and the cat, binding them together so they can no longer be separated. Baron's men exchange skeptical looks, muttering that he must be insane to expect anyone to believe such nonsense. Realizing his story is unraveling, our protagonist shifts tactics, questioning why Baron has another black cat locked away in his manor's dungeon. The accusation startles the noble. For a moment, his composure falters. Oh Jin presses harder, accusing him of plotting to swap out the real cat for an innocent one. Baron, angered and defensive, denies it, shifting blame by insisting that the animal attacks plaguing the village were caused not by Sunja, but by Oh Jin's own recklessness. Our hero counters that the real culprit was the Baron's own wolf, producing a medical chart as proof. The wounds on victims match the wolf's claws. One of the men snatches the documents, rips them apart, and mocks him. Our protagonist can only grit his teeth, silently cursing the lack of digital records in this world. Suddenly, one of the Baron's men shoves Oh Jin aside and approaches Sunja's cage. The cat hisses and lashes out, clawing at the intruder. Our boy's thoughts race. Summoning a steel carrier would reveal too much, and any hint of weapons could make things worse. He clutches the pendant around his neck, debating whether to risk using its power, knowing such a move could change everything. Before a decision is made, the door bursts open. Several elves enter, led by Selena and a tall man with long white hair. The newcomer's voice rings with authority as he commands everyone to stand down. Baron recognizes him at once, the insignia of the World Tree, the mana circle etched on his brow, all marks of Kallian, head of the Western Continent's Supreme Inspection Agency and guardian of the Etherian Order. Baron stammers a greeting, masking his unease with a sarcastic remark about the irony of such a sacred order appearing in a shabby clinic. Oh Jin bristles at the insult but holds his tongue. Kallian announces that they have come in response to reports of an endangered divine beast. Our hero stares, briefly distracted by how unreal the elf seems, as if a movie character had come to life. It dawns on him this must be the reason Selena vanished for days. When she passes the cage to Kallian, realization strikes. Her faintly pointed ears had always been a clue. She too is an elf. Selena warns her superior to be careful, insisting the cat is dangerously fierce. Kallian begins an incantation, surrounding Sunja in a sphere of blue light. As the creature rises weightlessly, he examines the wound on its crown, noting it resembles the cross-section of a world tree branch, the mark left by a mana extractor, a device used to drain the essence of sacred beings. His calm demeanor fades into anger as he turns to Baron, demanding to know if he was the one who severed Sunja the Monoceros' horn. The noble trembles, protesting his innocence, then flees in panic when pressed further. Our protagonist watches in awe, realizing the power and influence of elves here even surpass those of the nobility. He can't help but feel exhilarated by the display. Kallian, meanwhile, remarks that only a handful of weapons could injure a divine beast and promises the truth will be uncovered soon. He thanks Oh Jin for protecting the creature and announces that they will take the Monoceros under their care. Before they can act, Sunja's energy surges. The cat shatters the magical barrier, bolts forward, and buries itself in our hero's arms, pressing close as if terrified to leave him. The elves freeze in disbelief, a sacred being seeking comfort from a human. Sunja clings to Oh Jin's necklace, body trembling. Kallian's gaze narrows as he studies the pendant, recognition dawning in his eyes. He murmurs to his companions that the rumors are true, and that the implications are greater than expected. Our protagonist feels uneasy under the scrutiny. It's the same look his university professor gave him before trying to recruit him for graduate school. Even Selena now watches him with unreadable eyes. After a pause, Kallian decides to entrust Sunja to Oh Jin, explaining that although standard procedure would be to bring both human and beast to headquarters for investigation, Selena's presence inspires enough trust. She only shrugs, her boredom apparent. Our boy can't help but question her lack of enthusiasm, wondering how she manages to remain so calm through everything. Kallian performs another spell, conjuring a delicate necklace and placing it around Sunja's neck. The charm glows faintly with protective magic, designed to help the creature regain power in place of its lost horn. Sunja squirms, clearly irritated by the adornment. One of the elves explains the enchantment also contains an emergency signal, allowing them to sense instantly if the creature falls into danger. Oh Jin marvels at their magical sophistication. It's practically an automatic rescue system. Kallian then produces a ring and presents it to our hero as a token of gratitude, explaining that it shares the authority of the Celestian family along with similar protective magic. Oh Jin accepts hesitantly, half honored, half anxious about what burdens the gift might bring. Kallian smiles kindly and insists on placing it himself. Though awkward, our protagonist allows it. The elves murmur their approval, noting the ring suits him perfectly. He glances at the shining band on his finger, still uncertain what sort of fate he's just stepped into. Kim Oh Jin has been single since birth, and now the first ring of his life sits on his hand, an elf's ring glowing faintly with magic that feels far too suspicious. Something about it makes him uneasy. He tries to decline politely, apologizing and saying he can't accept such a gift. Kallian, puzzled, asks why, but our hero explains that, as someone who works with his hands, accessories just get in the way. Kallian suggests he think of it as armor rather than jewelry, though inwardly he notes that Oh Jin seems completely out of touch. Still, our protagonist holds firm, repeating that wearing anything on his hands would interfere with his work as a doctor. Kallian doesn't argue further. Instead, he murmurs a short chant, and the ring dissolves into light, reshaping itself into a tattoo on Oh Jin's finger. It looks unexpectedly cool. Kallian instructs him to place the emblem over his heart and say his family name. When Oh Jin does, his finger glows, and a holographic projection of Kallian appears before him. The elf explains that this magic enables remote communication, a spell for voice and image transmission, and invites him to try saying light Our boy repeats the word, and a small beam bursts from his fingertip. The elves watch with faint amusement as he waves his hand excitedly, genuinely impressed by the spell. Kalian assures him there are other functions he'll discover over time, but the most important is the protection enchantment bound within it. Oh Jin expresses his gratitude, still unsettled by how the ring transformed into a tattoo that feels so advanced. Selena looks on, faintly amused, recalling how adamantly he refused the ring but now seems pleased with the result. Kalian's attention shifts to the necklace around our protagonist's neck, and curiosity flickers across his face. When Oh Jin explains it came from a dragon, the elves are stunned. Dragons are believed to have vanished 1,000 years ago. He clarifies that he heard the same, but explains he once treated a dragon's sick pet as a healer. In return, the dragon gave him the necklace and promised to send him home, but instead, Oh Jin ended up in this world by mistake. Realizing, once again, how deeply everyone here understands magic, our hero asks if anyone knows how to send him back. Before he finishes, all three elves stare at him wide-eyed, then kneel. They begin chanting reverently to the spirit of healing, thanking fate for granting them the honor of meeting him. Oh Jin freezes in bewilderment. They really think he's some kind of divine being. Our boy protests, insisting they're mistaken. He's just an ordinary human caught up in a dragon's error, and the dragon's pet wasn't even seriously ill, just neglected. Kalian, however, points out that he still received a necklace imbued with a dragon's power. Oh Jin mutters that he only accepted it for travel expenses after being thrown into another world against his will. Kalian takes his hand solemnly and explains that their world faces a grave crisis. Mana, the sacred energy sustaining all life, is fading. Once it flowed abundantly, but since the dragon's extinction, it has dwindled, causing divine beasts to vanish and the very world to wither. If the depletion continues, the next generation won't survive. To combat this, the world's leaders formed the Etherian Order, an organization dedicated to preserving mana and restoring balance. Our protagonist, half listening, interprets it as something like a magical environmental agency. Kalian continues, saying that ancient legend speaks of the spirit of healing, a being bearing a dragon's authority who would one day save the world. When he says this, all eyes turn to Oh Jin. He points to himself in disbelief, asking if they really mean him. Kalian nods solemnly, confirming that they have awaited his arrival for centuries. Our hero tries to explain again that they're completely mistaken, but the elves are already bowing deeply, pledging their lives in service to the spirit of healing. The Celestian family and the Etherian Order both vow to protect him. Our protagonist feels the weight of their devotion crushing down, his thoughts spinning. He wants to scream that it's all nonsense, that the dragon who brought him here must have been insane. Inwardly, he curses the creature, wondering what kind of joke this is. The next morning, the chaos of divine misunderstandings gives way to the familiar routine of his clinic. A customer arrives carrying a flying fish and explains it can no longer fly. Oh Jin examines it carefully and determines that its nutrition is fine, it's simply aging. The owner looks disappointed, asking if there's any way to slow the process or help it regain flight. Our protagonist gently explains that aging is natural and inevitable, something that must be accepted. The owner hesitates, then confides that her bedridden father has loved flying fish all his life. He once raised several, but since falling ill, they've weakened one by one, and now only one, Lumi, remains. She was the mother's proposal gift. Decades ago, when her father asked her mother to marry him, he released Lumi into the night sky, her glowing fins sparkling like a star. Back then, flying fish could emit light as they soared, making them prized companions for festivals and celebrations. Listening, Oh Jin thinks that proposing with a fish instead of a ring sounds tacky, while Selena explains it was once considered romantic. The owner smiles faintly, admitting it isn't anymore. She continues, saying that after her mother's passing, her father's health declined, and now he spends his days in isolation, caring for his remaining fish. Recently, the owner's father confessed that if Lumi loses her ability to fly, he'll have no reason left to live. Our boy recognizes the sorrow behind the story, like the last leaf clinging to a branch before winter. Selena, unmoved, casually suggests buying new fish, which shocks him with her lack of empathy. The owner, close to tears, begs our hero to heal Lumi, to save her father from despair. But our protagonist can only repeat that Lumi is perfectly healthy. She's simply growing old, and even magic cannot stop time. The owner insists that Lumi must fly again to save her father from dying. Despite Oh Jin's explanation that Lumi is not ill, only aging, he senses just how dangerous emotional attachment can be. Even in this world, pet owners are deeply bound to their companions. Some refuse to eat until their pets recover, while others wish to die alongside them. Such emotions often cause more harm than good. Suddenly, Kalian appears, urging Oh Jin to make a promise. Before our protagonist can react, the scene fades, and he wakes up. It had all been a dream. In the morning, our hero greets Pio, who immediately notices the dark circles under his eyes. She confesses she also stayed up through the night. Pio assumes he was worrying about Lumi, the flying fish, though he denies it. She reflects that the fish's condition might not be due to aging, but to a lack of mana. She recalls that, when she was young, the glow of flying fish dimmed as the world's mana began to decline, and as mana in the air weakened, the fish gradually lost their ability to fly. Oh Jin realizes the situation is much like environmental pollution in his own world. The ecosystem here is collapsing in a similar way. He remembers the elves' words about him being destined to save this world. Selena joins the conversation, confirming that the problem extends beyond flying fish. Many animals are falling ill. What's often labeled as aging or unknown illness is actually caused by mana depletion. The clearest proof, she says, is Monokoros, who was once a lion. Our boy recalls that Sunja was originally a lion as well, and though she looks adorable as a cat now, he wonders what her true form was like. He pictures her grooming herself in the same way, even as a lion. A thought occurs to our protagonist. He asks Pio what illness typically affects guardians of the flying fish. She recalls it as a condition that weakens bones, causing easy fractures. Oh Jin asks Selena about the usual medicine prescribed. She names bloom root for bone healing, blood root for pain relief, and other supportive herbs. When he asks about side effects, Selena mentions that blood root causes fatigue and nerve dulling over time. Our hero immediately recognizes this as the issue and requests a medicine to counter those effects. Selena replies that such a medicine exists, but it cancels out the original effects. Still, our boy insists on knowing how to make it. Selena gestures behind her, and our protagonist realizes she means the mandrake. As he approaches, the mandrake frowns. Oh Jin explains that he only needs a few leaves, but the plant suddenly screams so loudly that everyone, Selena, Pio, and our hero, covers their ears. The mandrake starts crying, leaving him frustrated. Pio suggests that perhaps it feels neglected since he's been focused on Sunja lately. Our protagonist admits that he feels awkward around plants. Pio advises him to give it a name at least. When he hesitates, the mandrake cries even louder. Defeated, he names it Kim Mandol. Immediately, the plant stops crying and begins dancing happily. Oh Jin takes 2 leaves, thinking to himself how unsettlingly affectionate the plants and animals of this world are. Selena quietly observes, then asks to see his necklace. She examines it, finding nothing unusual. When she puts it on and tries to pet Sunja and Mandol, both react aggressively. Selena concludes that the necklace's bond works only for Oh Jin. She asks how he activates its power, and he explains that focusing his thoughts creates a tightness in his chest, which then releases energy. Selena realizes that this power might be linked to his heart. Oh Jin adds that touching the necklace draws the creatures to him, as if they're expecting food. While feeding Sunja his favorite churro snack, Selena notices the glow of energy and deduces that our boy is unknowingly feeding his mana to the creatures. The thought alarms her. Such a connection could be dangerous. Meanwhile, Pio announces that the crushed leaves are ready and has prepared a potion from them. She asks if she should bring another batch, and our hero agrees. Selena watches him in silence, deep in thought. Everything about Kim Oh Jin, the energy around him, the way life responds to his presence, seems beyond ordinary. For the first time, she begins to wonder if he truly is the spirit of healing the legends spoke of. At Luriel's mansion, she enters her father's room with his medicine and finds him lying on the floor. She rushes to help him up, quickly realizing that he had tried to stand because Lumi wanted to stay near the window. Despite his frailty, he insists he's fine. Luriel worries that his weak bones make such movements dangerous, but he simply responds that his time is limited anyway. She protests, insisting his illness can still improve, yet he believes death comes not only from disease, but also from losing hope. Tears fall as she begs him to stop speaking that way, but he refuses. At that moment, Oh Jin arrives with Selena, Pio, and the rest of his group, interrupting the emotional scene. He boldly declares that people die not from illness or fate, but from misinformation, incorrect prescriptions, bad habits, and a lack of proper care. Both Luriel and her father are startled by the sudden appearance. Our protagonist introduces himself and explains that Lumi's inability to fly isn't due to old age, but rather the side effects of the drugs her father has been taking. The father is confused, insisting he's the one taking the medicine, not Lumi. Our hero clarifies that flying fish still retain their aquatic grooming instincts. They clean the food or individuals they care about. Lumi, by grooming her father's hair and beard, absorbed the medicine's residue through contact. Luriel recalls how Lumi had spent nights near her father, brushing against him. The old man realizes the truth and mutters that this explains why his beard always appeared so shiny. Oh Jin confirms this and presents syringes containing the cure he developed. He explains that the fish will regain its energy within a day or two. The father jokes he'll shave everything off to avoid repeating the problem. Our protagonist begins the treatment, holding each fish while Pio restrains them so he can inject the medicine. When finished, he notes that it's a fast-acting drug. Moments later, Lumi begins to stir and suddenly lifts into the air, glowing faintly as she flies toward the father. He gazes at her, realizing it isn't a dream. One by one, the other fish begin to glow and rise, their bodies emitting a soft blue light. The entire room fills with shimmering brightness as the fish circle above. Luriel and her father watch in awe. The sight reminds her father of the day he proposed to her mother, using glowing fish that soared into the sky just like this. Holding Lumi, he is deeply moved. Pio observes quietly, understanding that the reaction came from contact with Oh Jin's blood and mana, and realizing that he isn't ordinary. Selena reaches a similar conclusion, wondering if he's truly the one spoken of in the prophecy, the spirit of healing. Later, Selena meets with Kallian to discuss it. Kallian believes everything aligns perfectly with the prophecy, and asserts that Oh Jin's bond with Monoceros is irrefutable proof. Selena questions his decision to give our protagonist the ring that does not belong to him, but Kallian insists that the original owner would have approved. He admits that rumors of the spirit of healing will soon spread across the world, and that they plan to use this to uncover the truth behind hidden forces rather than simply chasing enemies. Selena realizes this is why Baron Doyle was released, to draw out those working behind the scenes. Kallian reassures her that Oh Jin won't be harmed, and points out that it's no coincidence she met him in this village. Selena recalls first seeing our hero when he subdued a giant rabbit in the village while wearing his mysterious necklace. Although she admits he is unique, she remains doubtful that he is the spirit of healing. Kallian tells her to keep watching, reminding her that the prophecy doesn't only speak of salvation, it also warns of the trials that must come before it. Another quiet morning unfolds at Oh Jin's clinic. Inside, a blob known as the Bloop sits hunched on a leaf once again, even though its care had already been charged the previous week. Our hero notices it and grows irritated, wondering why it's still here. Meanwhile, Selena is tending to the creature, explaining that she's looking after one of the 3 bloops. She handles it carelessly, prompting our protagonist to step in. He recalls that blobs are divided into core types, which contain a core in their heads, and non-core types, which multiply easily. Containing a core type prevents further division, but the one Selena is handling lacks a core and can reproduce when stressed. Selena confirms that it's a sensitive specimen that multiplies under pressure. Our boy becomes uneasy, all too aware of the dangers of keeping such creatures. Bloops can reproduce uncontrollably and have wiped out entire villages when mishandled. Keeping one in the clinic, alongside volatile creatures like the Mandrake and Sunjaw, feels reckless. He questions the decision silently, realizing Selena hasn't obtained the owner's permission, having acted on her own under the guise of cooperation. Pio, watching the exchange, grows nervous, subtly suggesting that perhaps it's better not to get involved. Our protagonist remembers hearing that elves who cover their ears often do so to hide criminal markings burned in as punishment. The thought lingers in his mind. Selena's habit of acting first, her avoidance of personal questions, and her aggressive temperament all raise doubts about her past. Oh Jin briefly considers dismissing her, but decides against it given the clinic's heavy workload. Before he can dwell further, Selena signals that it's opening time, and the routine continues. Elsewhere, at Baron Doyle's castle, the Baron speaks through a Lagrima crystal with a mysterious figure. The man demands to know why the Etherian Order appeared at Oh Jin's clinic. The Baron explains that they burst in suddenly, mentioned a divine beast, interrupted his work, and left. The man grows angry, accusing the Baron of letting the Etherian Order take the Monoceros. The Baron apologizes and promises to recover it, but adds that he doesn't need to steal the beast, as it's already with Kim Oh Jin. The man is shocked, knowing Monoceros cannot typically coexist with humans. The Baron insists it follows our protagonist willingly. The man orders him to silence everyone who knows, calling him incompetent. The connection ends, leaving the Baron frustrated after a long scolding. He instructs his butler to summon Theodore and Alex, who are currently on leave. The butler mentions they were granted time off after complaining about overtime. The Baron, angered, cancels their leave and demands they be brought back, realizing the problem is only getting worse. Meanwhile, at the marketplace, rumors spread rapidly about the Etherian Order's appearance. Townspeople gossip about seeing the group in person and wonder why such a powerful order would visit a countryside clinic. Word circulates that they came because of a rare divine species. Some claim our hero is not just an ordinary doctor, but someone from another world. Others repeat tales of him subduing a mana-infused beast and taming a divine creature barehanded. Stories twist fact and fantasy until the entire town buzzes with speculation. As evening falls, the rumors take on a new tone. People begin calling Oh Jin the spirit of healing, a figure once believed to be female according to ancient prophecy. Now they say the spirit is a man instead, and whoever gains his favor will rule the world. A woman with long pink hair discusses the rumor with a brown-haired companion, remarking that the prophecy's meaning might shift with this new interpretation. In the noble district of Manhwa, Adrian arrives at his clinic, expecting the usual bustle but finding the place silent. He comments on the emptiness and learns from the butler that no patients have arrived since morning. Suspecting Count Downey of interference, he vows to retaliate. His assistant quietly mentions that the drop in clients might be linked to a new vet clinic in Belmont, Oh Jin's. Adrian dismisses the idea, reasoning that nobles would never visit a commoner's establishment. Yet his composure falters when he hears that Lady Marianne has cancelled her appointment to visit Oh Jin's clinic instead. The realization enrages him. Slamming his hand on the desk, Adrian orders his carriage at once, determined to confront the man responsible for his humiliation. Adrian, born into nobility, possessed intelligence, talent, and striking looks, qualities that made his decision to become a veterinarian seem unusual to many. He, however, had a simple reason. He genuinely loved people who adored their pets. With practiced charm, he often reassured anxious owners that their beloved animals would recover, taking satisfaction in easing their worries. Adrian always maintained a clear line between personal and professional life, except when it came to one woman, Lady Marianne Astrid. From the moment she entered his clinic, his heart had chosen her. He often believed he had become a vet solely to treat her unicorn. That conviction turned to bitterness when he learned that Lady Marianne had chosen someone else, a commoner, to treat Lulu, her unicorn. Angered, he ordered his clinic closed for the day and set out for the Astrid estate immediately. At the mansion, Marianne's mother received him politely but with evident disinterest, questioning his unannounced visit. Adrian expressed concern for Lulu, describing the unicorn as sensitive and implying that entrusting her to a random commoner was irresponsible. Her mother corrected him. Kim Oh Jin, the new vet, was actually a woman. The revelation caught him off guard. She added that, though a commoner, our hero was said to be extremely skilled and so beautiful that people called her a fairy or a spirit. The idea unsettled Adrian, who began imagining what kind of woman could be compared to a fairy, perhaps a golden-haired angel or a mysterious dark beauty. His fantasies were interrupted when Marianne's mother admitted she had fabricated the story to test his reaction and promptly ordered the servants to escort him out. Humiliated but still defiant, Adrian insisted he was not obsessed with women, only devoted to Lady Marianne. His declaration only amused her mother, who had him thrown out anyway. Seated in his carriage, Adrian fumed over the insult and resolved to meet Kim Oh Jin himself. He prided himself on understanding unicorns better than most, knowing that they judged people by scent, despised the smell of blood and sweat, and could be violent toward men. Unicorns adored cleanliness and pleasant perfume, and he believed his meticulous grooming made him uniquely suited to approach them. He recalled his own trials earning a unicorn's trust, and how his strategy of bathing twice daily and wearing the same perfume as their owner had worked wonders. He was certain that a stinky commoner, ignorant of perfume, would surely provoke Lulu's rage, providing him the perfect chance to intervene heroically before Marianne's eyes. The thought made him blush and laugh to himself, while his coachman silently pitied his delusions. When Adrian's carriage reached Belmore, he found a crowd gathered outside the clinic, murmuring in excitement at the sight of a unicorn. Confident that our protagonist was about to embarrass himself, Adrian prepared to enjoy the spectacle. That confidence shattered when he saw our hero calmly seated on Lulu's back, the unicorn utterly at ease. The crowd marveled, and Marianne herself admitted she had never seen Lulu allow anyone else to ride her. Adrian stood frozen, unable to believe the scene. He convinced himself there must be trickery involved, perhaps magic from the elf woman standing beside Oh Jin. His suspicions crumbled when Lulu suddenly bit the elf's arm, leaving her stunned and silent. Oh Jin immediately tended to the injury and ushered the crowd away, while murmurs spread among the onlookers. Determined not to retreat in humiliation, Adrian decided to spy on them. He spotted an open window and began climbing a nearby tree, recalling his academy days as a tree-climbing champion. From the window, he saw our boy treating the elf's bite wound, calmly applying herbs and wrapping it with an unfamiliar technique. Adrian's eyes narrowed at the strange crest glowing faintly on Oh Jin's hand. Shock struck him as he recognized it, the symbol of House Celestian, the noblest of all elven families. He stared in disbelief, realizing that the so-called commoner vet bore the mark of the highest elven lineage. Oh Jin notices a faint mark on Selena's hand while bandaging it, and quickly realizes that what he thought was a minor wound actually carries poison from the creature's saliva. He remarks that they were lucky it wasn't worse. Selena, reflecting on the creature's earlier reaction, observes that it showed unusual hostility, something rare for its species. Marianne apologizes for the incident and insists on covering the medical costs, but our hero refuses, admitting that it was their own carelessness. When Marianne gestures toward Selena and asks if she works at the clinic, Oh Jin explains that she's an assistant doctor, handling prescriptions and physical tasks around the place. Marianne acknowledges the arrangement, then comments that despite Oh Jin's reputation, the clinic seems rather small for someone with his skill. The remark sends our protagonist back to memories of his previous workplace, a cramped, noisy building plagued with a clogged toilet, broken heating, and constant complaints about animals. Before he can finish his thoughts, Marianne interrupts, expressing sympathy for his past struggles and admiration for his achievements. Her tone softens into flustered praise as she compliments him and subtly suggests her family could sponsor a larger clinic, leaving our boy uncertain whether she's proposing business or something else entirely. Before the tension settles, Lulu suddenly lashes out at Sunjaw, sending the room into chaos. Both Marianne and our protagonist rush to restrain them as Selena observes that unicorns, despite their resemblance to Monoceros, typically get along well with smaller creatures. Marianne bristles at the implication that Lulu's temperament is at fault, and the conversation quickly escalates between her and Selena, Accusations about manners, bribed reservations, and noble entitlement fill the air. Pio mutters that nobles really do think differently, earning a glare from Marianne. As the atmosphere grows heated, Lulu thrashes wildly, striking a bookshelf and knocking it over. Suddenly, a loud crash erupts. The window shatters and Adrian tumbles through, landing face first on the floor. Everyone freezes as Selena halts the falling bookshelf midair, saving it from collapse. The group stares in disbelief, unsure if the intruder is even alive. Adrian lifts his head, bloodied but smiling, and addresses Marianne with exaggerated relief. While Marianne stammers in shock, Pio demands to know who he is. Adrian introduces himself grandly as Adrian Heaven Crown, kisses Pio's hand, and declares his devotion to protecting all beautiful life. Oh Jin stares at him, inwardly appalled by the theatrical entrance and pretentious tone, comparing Adrian to an overly dramatic influencer. When asked why he entered through a window, Adrian responds indignantly, insisting he is Lulu's primary physician and accusing our protagonist of mistreating her. The accusation quickly turns into an argument. Oh Jin insists Lulu is fine, while Adrian calls him an unqualified fraud and even brands him a cyber-hooking bastard. Confused, Oh Jin turns to Selena for an explanation, and she clarifies that it's an insult for a deceitful womanizer who lures people in like a carnivorous plant. Realization dawns on our hero a beat too late, deepening his disbelief. Marianne intervenes, scolding Adrian for his vulgarity, but Adrian presses on, interrogating Oh Jin about his romantic history. In the midst of the confrontation, Adrian notices a mark on Oh Jin's hand and accuses him of being tied to a noble bloodline, or something even more scandalous. Pio blurts out that it must be an engagement ring, causing everyone to look at our boy in shock. Flustered, he explains that the token was a gift from someone named Kalyan, but his clarification only deepens the confusion. Before anyone can question further, Lulu begins trembling violently, sweat breaking out along her skin. Moments later, she collapses and everyone rushes to her side. Oh Jin examines her quickly. Her pupils react normally, and though her breathing is heavy, it isn't critical. He calls for Pio to bring a candle and stethoscope, piecing together the cause. Adrian watches, then grimly announces his own conclusion. Lulu isn't ill, she's pregnant. Adrian examines Lulu and concludes that she is expecting. Marianne, initially disbelieving, struggles to accept his diagnosis, convinced that the unicorn's isolation in the castle's greenhouse makes pregnancy impossible. Selena supports Adrian's suspicion, noting that Lulu's recent behavioral changes, especially her heightened vigilance, align with early signs of pregnancy. When Adrian introduces a medical device to detect internal sounds, Marianne follows his instructions and, using the tool, identifies Lulu's heartbeat. Then another, smaller and distinct, coming from within her abdomen. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she collapses, and Adrian catches her. Meanwhile, our protagonist calmly explains that the device is called a stethoscope. Adrian is astonished by its accuracy, impressed by how clearly it transmits even the faintest internal sounds. Working together, Adrian and Oh Jin determine that Lulu is about 4 months along. Marianne rejects the idea again, insisting that Lulu has not left the greenhouse during that time. Her claim only deepens the mystery, since the unicorn had been secluded in preparation for an arranged mating with Prince Theo's prized horse, Shark. Despite these precautions, the evidence of pregnancy is undeniable. Lulu is transferred to the ICU, where Oh Jin administers fluids and electrolytes through an IV to counter dehydration and malnutrition caused by persistent vomiting. The others observe in fascination, noting the directness of a treatment that bypasses digestion entirely. Silence settles as Marianne tries to process the situation. Selena breaks the quiet, reasoning that the arranged meeting with the prince's horse would likely have failed, since unicorns rarely choose partners and often remain single for life, unless they meet one truly worthy. On rare occasions, an exceptional pairing produces a legendary hybrid with a golden body. Adrian suggests sending Lulu to the palace as a royal gift to explain the situation directly to His Highness, believing the prince would welcome such a rare creature. Selena dismisses the idea as unreliable, reminding them that stories of hybrid unicorns are mostly myth and that no one yet knows who the father is. Adrian points out the many distinguished horses raised under Lady Marianne's care, any of which could be possible candidates. Siegfried, admired for speed and beauty, Tara, valued for endurance, Dolly, known for charm, and Black Thunder, famous for strength. Marianne concedes that identifying the true partner is essential before any decision can be made. When Adrian volunteers to assist, Marianne instead appeals to Oh Jin, hoping his medical insight might uncover the truth. He declines, reminding her that a stethoscope cannot determine lineage. Adrian intervenes, acknowledging that Oh Jin's instincts and concern for Lulu make him more suited than anyone else to help. Selena adds that the answer may already be close at hand since pregnant unicorns typically display distress when separated from their mates, yet Lulu remained calm throughout the journey. Tracing the timeline, Marianne realizes that Lulu's agitation only began after arriving at their destination. The carriage route provides the first clue. At the stable, Joseph tends to a young mongrel horse, unaware of the tension building around him. When Lulu spots the colt, she becomes visibly emotional, rushing toward it and embracing it with clear recognition. The onlookers are stunned. Marianne is horrified, unable to comprehend why a unicorn of royal standing would bond with a common mixed-breed horse. The scene's absurdity draws a quiet remark from our hero, likening it to a dramatic play where a noble parent rejects a forbidden match. Adrian, observing Lulu's behavior, affirms that despite every expectation, the connection between the two animals is genuine. Marianne protests that the colt is too young, but Oh Jin points out that Lulu's choice is clear, and that separating them would only harm both her and the unborn foal. The evidence leaves Marianne speechless, her thoughts circling the impossible reality before her: a unicorn, symbol of purity and grace, bound by affection to an ordinary stable horse. After discovering the truth about Lulu and the horse, Marianne's father confronts Joseph. He tells the young man that allowing a lowly carriage horse to get close to a precious unicorn is utter madness. Joseph tries to explain that he had no idea, but the Count accuses him of lying and attempting to profit from the situation. Despite Joseph's denials, the Count refuses to listen and orders both him and the horse locked up, announcing that punishment will be delivered soon. The maids whisper among themselves, agreeing that the Count is being too cruel. Joseph did nothing wrong. They point out that no one can stop animals from being affectionate toward each other. The conversation turns to why Lulu was supposed to be sent to the royal palace, with some realizing she was likely meant as a bribe for the crown princess election at the end of the year. They mention Marianne's participation, and how Lulu could have lived in royal luxury if things had gone as planned, but instead ended up with a carriage horse. One maid comments that Lulu probably takes after her owner. Another hints that there's much people don't know about young Lady Marianne. Suddenly, one maid warns the others to be quiet. Just then, another maid rushes in to report that Lulu's condition has worsened. She started coughing blood. Marianne immediately hurries to Lulu's side and asks what's wrong. The maid explains that Lulu hasn't been able to eat due to morning sickness and is now vomiting blood. She remembers Selena's warning. Pregnant unicorns become extremely anxious when separated from their partners, and Lulu's health has worsened because of it. The maid cautions that if this continues, the situation could become much more dire. Marianne asks when Oh Jin will arrive, and the maid replies that a message was sent in the morning, but he's delayed due to the distance. Determined, Marianne decides to find another doctor nearby and orders that the horse be brought to Lulu. The man leading the horse urges it to move faster, while the maids complain about the smell. They say that being locked up is no excuse, and that he should have been cleaned before meeting the young lady. The man insists it was urgent. Marianne silences them and instructs that the horse be sent in. The moment Lulu sees him, she immediately runs to him and presses herself close. Marianne orders warm water, saying she'll clean him herself. The maids are shocked, but she ignores their protests and also instructs them to prepare soup for Lulu. She begins cleaning the horse with a towel dipped in warm water, thinking that he's a heartless animal, yet unable to forget how her own parents once disapproved of her relationship with a merchant's son. She reflects that Lulu could have lived surrounded by luxury, but wonders if this simple happiness is what Lulu truly wants. At that moment, our protagonist arrives. He treats Lulu's condition and explains that although animals may have preferences, there is no hierarchy among them. Lulu does not see herself as superior to a horse. He sets up an IV for Lulu and assures Marianne that just being with the one she loves is enough for her happiness. As he provides medicine, he notes that this will help for now, but is only a temporary fix. The real solution is allowing Lulu and her partner to remain together. Marianne quietly agrees. Our hero prepares to leave, mentioning that he must return to the clinic where many patients await, and his assistant doctor remains, though he silently doubts her empathy. Marianne assures him she understands, saying she'll leave the aftercare to him. As Marianne and Oh Jin watch, Adrian clings awkwardly to the tree, visibly struggling to climb down. He finally descends, apologizing for his discourtesy, but our hero corrects him, calling it a crime instead. Adrian insists he only climbed the tree out of concern for Lulu and intended to leave after checking on her. Marianne reminds him that he should have informed the staff, but Adrian explains he tried and was refused entry. Noticing the device in Adrian's pouch, Oh Jin recognizes it as a stethoscope and casually comments on how cheap it feels. Adrian, embarrassed, admits it's still a prototype. Our protagonist advises that a doctor should have proper tools, then prepares to leave, mentioning his busy patient schedule. Adrian watches him go, thinking that Oh Jin is a better person than he'd imagined, while our boy thinks the opposite, confirming to himself that Adrian is a strange man. Later that evening, Lulu begins eating on her own and regains some strength, bringing relief to Marianne. Adrian tells her that love and care are the best medicine and praises her for personally tending to Lulu. Marianne reflects that her stubbornness caused Lulu's suffering and admits she should have reunited them sooner, realizing she was perhaps jealous of her unicorn. She recalls how she was once as innocent as Lulu, but over time grew used to judging others by their status and wealth. Adrian remarks that all nobles are like that, but Marianne thinks back to her first love, remembering how she never cared about status, only the beauty in his eyes. She had given up on him for their mutual happiness, and now wonders aloud if she is truly happy. Adrian responds that first loves always end in heartbreak, and that such pain can blind a person to the love already near them. He suggests her true soulmate might already be close. Marianne feels confused, realizing too late what she had overlooked, and decides to withdraw from the princess selection. As Adrian listens, he secretly takes a small box from his pocket, feeling a rare opportunity forming in his heart. He places it before Marianne and starts to speak, but suddenly she declares that she will make her move on Oh Jin. Adrian freezes, uncertain he heard correctly, and asks for clarification in disbelief. Marianne continues, saying she would rather hold power herself than marry someone who already has it, leaving Adrian stunned. She ends the conversation by thanking him and saying she hopes they can remain good friends. Adrian feels crushed by her words and vows never to forgive Oh Jin. Back at the clinic, Pio sneezes and continues reading from a paper, informing Oh Jin that Kyo is being taken in as Lulu's companion and requesting him to become Lulu's personal doctor. The offer includes 10 times the usual payment, but our hero refuses, explaining he cannot leave the hospital due to his busy schedule, and Pio complains that the tartar won't come off even after an hour. Oh Jin examines the snake whose teeth are being cleaned, spots tartar buildup, and instructs Pio to spray saline and prepare anti-inflammatory medicine in cotton. While working, he discovers something lodged between the teeth and pulls out a small object. The pet's owner is overjoyed, revealing that the creature, Shamir, is a sacred beast once gifted to their family by the late king, and that it has just swallowed their heirloom. Our protagonist notes that some tartar still remains, and several teeth may need extraction, estimating 1 or 2 more hours of work. Selena remarks that it might take 5 hours since the beast has another head. Overwhelmed, our hero despairs as the owner tries to cheer him up, presenting a painting of himself and Shamir. The owner explains it was created by their family's official portrait artist and asks if Oh Jin likes it. He finds the painting ugly and wants to refuse, but the artist insists he will finish and present it soon, saying it's been a long time since he found such an inspiring subject. While he speaks, Shamir's eyes open, and Selena notices immediately. Oh Jin grows tense, wondering if the sedative dosage was enough. Selena raises her hand to cast a protective spell, but Adrian suddenly steps in front of her and the spell hits him instead of the beast. Selena recognizes him as the noble doctor and wonders why he appeared so suddenly. Before anyone can react, Shamir opens its mouth, swallows Adrian whole, and gulps him down. Everyone in the room stands frozen, shocked that the beast has just swallowed a man. The clinic is closed for the day, yet a crowd has been waiting outside since dawn. People complain about traveling from afar after hearing of the doctor's skill, while others discuss trying the hospital in the next village instead. Watching from a distance, Adrian feels his anger rising. He cannot forgive Oh Jin for making women cry while calling himself the spirit of healing. He recalls a conversation with his assistant. When asked about the spirit of healing, the assistant described it as a legendary being capable of granting the power to rule the world. Adrian had scoffed at the idea, thinking Lady Marianne foolish for being swayed by such talk, and believing that he himself looked more like a spirit than Oh Jin ever could. Yet his mind drifts back to the assistant's words about Oh Jin's miracles, healing a flying fish, turning a demon apostle into a cat. The stethoscope hanging from Adrian's neck, a gift from our hero, feels heavier as he remembers being asked if he still cherishes it. He had pretended indifference, saying he would return it and asking if a copy existed. The assistant confirmed it. Now, hiding in a tree with binoculars, Adrian muses that he only came to return the tool, wondering why he's here again. Below, our protagonist is treating a hydra. Its 2 heads move weakly as he scrapes tartar from its gums, rinses with water, and applies medicine to prevent inflammation. Watching closely, Adrian feels reluctant admiration, realizing that our boy's medical skill far surpasses his own, even though he'd been a top student at the Royal Academy. Suddenly, the hydra's tail flicks. It begins to wake from sedation. Adrian notices too late as the creature lunges forward toward Helena. He runs to save her, and the hydra swallows him in one gulp. Shock ripples through the crowd. Oh Jin, momentarily stunned, watches as the hydra's owner cries out in panic. Selena quickly assesses that Adrian has been swallowed whole and prepares to use magic, but our protagonist stops her, noticing the hydra's tongue has turned purple and its breathing is blocked. It has swallowed something too large. Drawing on a method they once practiced, Oh Jin and Selena move at once. On his count, Selena strikes the hydra sharply, forcing it to perform a Heimlich maneuver. The creature thrashes, and with another strong hit, Adrian is expelled, landing on the ground. The hydra's breathing steadies, and relief spreads among the owners, who praise our hero's medical skill. Our protagonist instructs Selena to check Adrian's condition. She confirms that he is alive but will remain unconscious for a while, due to the magic spell used on the Gemini Hydra. Oh Jin silently notes that Shamir's condition has also stabilized, though the earlier shock caused bruising on its abdomen. Selena applies ointment and finishes the dressing. Later in the evening, our boy guides the Hydra's owners to be more careful, reminding them that any accident where a pet swallows something is the owner's responsibility. They promise to be cautious, even joking that they'll make sure it never swallows a human again. A few days later, the Baron sends a painting titled The Great Rescue Operation as a gift. Our protagonist dismisses it as bizarre, only to learn that a statue of him saving Adrian from Shamir's mouth has also been made. He feels the world has gone mad. Meanwhile, Adrian remains asleep, unaware of it all, while Pio and Selena watch over him, waiting for him to wake. Adrian wakes up, confused about where he is and what happened. Memories begin to piece themselves together. He was spying on Oh Jin's clinic, saw the snake awaken, and jumped in to save Selena. The next thing he remembers is being swallowed whole. Inside the darkness, he thinks grimly that it's a fitting end for a vegetarian. If there's another life, maybe being reborn as a unicorn with a beautiful heroine wouldn't be so bad. Suddenly, pain courses through him. He wonders if this is what it feels like to be unborn, silently begging for it to stop. He coughs, and the sound pulls him back to reality. Selena stands beside him, noting that he's conscious now. Adrian, still dizzy, wonders if she's his owner. She tells him not to get up yet. The side effects of the magic will leave him dizzy and nauseous, so he should rest for 2 or 3 days. Adrian quietly agrees. Our protagonist enters with a steaming cup, instructing him to sit up for a moment. He explains that it's medicine for recovery, and insists Adrian drink it all. Adrian obliges, while Oh Jin mentions he even added some of Mandol's leaves to the brew. He also informs Adrian that Astrid Manor has already been contacted and that he can rest here for a few more days. Adrian protests, not wanting to impose, but our hero reminds him that as a doctor, he should know health comes first. Adrian thanks him, and our boy says he'll step out so Adrian can rest. As Oh Jin leaves, Adrian watches and finds himself thinking that our protagonist really is a great guy. Embarrassed about his earlier jealousy, Adrian decides he wants to be more like that someday, until he spots a letter on the side table, an invoice. Loading fee, 500 silver, meal fee, 100 silver, total, 6686 silver. Adrian stares at it and curses Oh Jin under his breath. Meanwhile, at the clinic, a couple stands with their cat, worried that their pet's gender might be changed. Our hero explains it's just a figure of speech. The cat will be castrated. The couple protests, arguing that it's cruel. Our protagonist patiently reminds them that the cat's energy has been declining, caring for the kittens is hard, and the female's health is suffering from too many births. He asks what solution they would suggest. The owner protests that the cat is still young. Oh Jin asks if they want to calculate how many more kittens there'll be in 5 years, or if they're secretly selling fennec fox pups. The owner denies it, but argues that if the surgery happens, what pleasure will the cat have left? Used to these discussions, our hero explains that frequent mating causes rapid aging, shortens lifespan, and lowers the quality of life for both pet and owner. The couple leaves teary-eyed. Pio assures them she'll help book a surgery date. After they go, our protagonist mutters about having to schedule it himself soon. He's tired of repeating the same advice every time. Pio tells him the next patient is her childhood friend's pet, and asks him to take good care of it. Oh Jin promises he will. A girl enters, holding a large chicken, and says they're here for a checkup. Our hero notes the bird's glossy feathers and remarks that it looks perfectly healthy. Pio adds that Pop is the biggest and healthiest among her friend's pets. The girl nods proudly. 20 minutes later, our hero finishes examining Pop and concludes the chicken is fit to compete in a prime chicken contest. The girl, still uneasy, mentions that Pop seems thinner lately, but Oh Jin determines it's not true weight loss. She recalls a seizure during Pop's sleep and worries it might be serious, but our protagonist concludes it was likely harmless restlessness. The girl adds that Pop's throat was sore the previous day, fearing infection. Pio reassures her that this is common. After a careful check, Oh Jin finds nothing abnormal, easing her concerns. Later, Pio runs in, alarmed. Pop has disappeared. Tyr explains she stopped by the bathroom before heading home, and in that moment, Pop vanished. Oh Jin orders all exits and windows sealed. Selena tells everyone in the waiting area to stay put because an animal is missing. Some patients complain that their pets get restless if confined too long. Sunja calms them as their pets begin to act up. The team searches everywhere but can't find Pop. Oh Jin asks if Pop likes or dislikes anything particular. Tyr says she doesn't know, but maybe Pop already left. Our protagonist insists Pop can't open doors or jump through windows. It must still be inside. Pio remembers that Pop loves men. Our boy notes that some animals prefer lower-pitched voices. Tyr says Pop's obsession with men is extreme. Realization dawns on our hero. That's why Pop clung to him during the checkup. Sunja suggests there's only one place left, a room where a man is sleeping. They rush there and find Pop hugging Adrian tightly. Everyone freezes in surprise. Oh Jin looks at Tyr, asking why she did this. Oh Jin confronts Tyr, asking why she deliberately left Pop behind. From the start, he sensed something was off. In all his years as a doctor, he's met countless types of owners, but never a guardian disappointed to hear their pet is healthy. He points out that, no matter how fast a chicken may be, it's too conspicuous and small to lose track of, and far too noticeable to slip through doors and end up here unnoticed. He demands an explanation. Tyr confesses that she did it because the Baroness would never believe someone like her. But if a famous doctor like Oh Jin claimed Pop was sick and disappeared, she would. Our hero asks who would even believe such a story, and Tyr answers, Baroness. Desperation fills her voice as she begs Oh Jin to save her. If she tells the Baroness that Pop is healthy, he'll be hunted. A hunting competition is approaching, hosted by the House of Baroness alongside a banquet for an important guest, rumored to include Prince Theo himself. The Baroness, preparing for the event, plans to cook Pop for the feast. The room falls silent. Pio bursts out in disbelief, questioning why anyone would want to eat someone's pet, especially when the Baroness already owns several large fire chickens. Tyr explains that those chickens died last year from a contagious disease. Oh Jin remarks there must be other ingredients, yet the Baroness insists on Pop. Tyr goes on. Big fire chickens are prized for their vitality and fertility, creatures renowned for laying many eggs. Families seeking to strengthen their lineage often covet them, believing that consuming such a beast enhances vitality. Our protagonist bitterly observes that people everywhere are obsessed with stealing others' gifts through superstition. Tyr says the Baroness has long coveted Pop and now threatens to drive them from their farmland if they refuse. Pio, angered, declares that using someone's livelihood to steal a beloved pet is unforgivable. Tyr pleads again, begging Oh Jin to write a diagnosis claiming Pop has a contagious disease, assuring him that no one would dare touch the bird then. Our hero refuses. The room grows heavy with silence. He explains that the moment a doctor forges a diagnosis, they stop being a healer. They become a fraud exploiting life itself. Once that line is crossed, no treatment they offer can be trusted. Adrian suddenly interjects, furious, accusing him of valuing professional ethics above life itself. To him, a doctor's duty is to save lives, not cling to rules. Oh Jin remains resolute, reasoning that if he lies and claims Pop has a dangerous disease, the animal will be branded as infected. The barn could be sealed off, and every creature there might be slaughtered. If the truth comes out later, the family could face punishment or blame for future outbreaks. He states that a doctor's purpose is to save lives, but never at the cost of endangering hundreds to protect one. If someone cannot understand that, they are not fit to be a doctor. Tyr lowers her head, apologizing quietly. Outside the clinic, Tyr breaks down in tears. Pio tries to comfort her, assuring her that a solution must exist. Tyr despairs that she can never win against nobility and considers running away with Pop. Just then, our protagonist appears. He tells her there's no need to flee. Though he cannot help as a doctor, he can assist as a fellow pet owner. Tyr and Pio look up in relief as he explains his plan. Oh Jin instructs Tyr to spread a rumor in the House of Baroness, and without turning, he calls out to the eavesdroppers nearby. He orders them to come out, especially Adrian, whom he assigns an important role. At the Clay's mansion, gossip fills the air. Guests discuss how Duke Astrid's daughter, Lady Marianne, has withdrawn from the prince consort selection, once considered a strong candidate. The Baroness listens with growing satisfaction, believing this is her daughter's chance to rise. She imagines the moment her daughter becomes the prince's chosen and sees it as revenge against every noble who once mocked them. The upcoming banquet, she thinks, will be the perfect stage to secure her daughter's future. Her plans are interrupted when Adrian appears at the entrance. The Baroness freezes, startled by his presence and captivated by his striking looks. As he approaches with composed grace, he requests to speak with her privately at the table. The Baroness, caught off guard, can only stare, wondering who this impossibly handsome stranger might be. The Baroness, seated beside Adrian, feels as though she is dreaming. Surrounded by admiring glances, she basks in the moment, barely able to believe she is conversing with such a handsome man at her own party. She asks if he graduated from the royal school, and, upon his confirmation, eagerly inquires whether he has met the royal family. Adrian replies that he has, mentioning that he saw Prince Theo often since they attended during the same period. The Baroness immediately takes mental notes, deciding she must update her home's interior to match the latest royal trends. Curious, she asks about the prince's eating habits. Adrian responds with gentle curiosity, wondering if she intends to serve him a meal. Embarrassed, she hesitates, but he reassures her, saying he understands the challenge of preparing a dish for royalty. He offers to introduce her to his regular merchant, a secretive trader who only serves the upper class and deals exclusively in rare, high-quality imported ingredients. The Baroness, astonished and delighted, declares she wishes to meet this merchant right away, considering it an unexpected stroke of luck. Adrian escorts her to a small cottage, introducing it as the merchant's meeting place. The Baroness is disappointed by its humble appearance, but her thoughts are interrupted as two figures step forward and introduce themselves as Louis Vuitton and Chanel, none other than Selina and Oh Jin in disguise. Our protagonist welcomes her warmly, and Selina comments that she has arrived at just the right moment. The Baroness, wary, suspects they might be con artists. Oh Jin presents a dessert, describing it as the latest sensation among foreign nobles, a devilish confection called tanghulu. The Baroness examines the glossy skewered fruit and hesitantly takes a bite. Instantly, her doubts vanish. The crisp sugar shell shatters with a satisfying crack, releasing a burst of tangy juice that floods her senses. The sweetness and acidity combine perfectly. She is overwhelmed by the taste and silently admits to herself that these people are genuine first-class merchants. Once she's impressed, Oh Jin smoothly shifts the topic, mentioning a rumor that she recently acquired a rare ingredient known as the Plant of Immortality. The Baroness is startled, but our hero continues, describing it as the chickpea of eternal youth, an ingredient said to slow aging, improve health, and even prevent ailments like constipation and hair loss. Enthralled, the Baroness demands to purchase them all, but Oh Jin explains that every batch is already reserved. Adrian insists that, as a regular customer, they should make an exception. Our boy hesitates, claiming the reserved stock is meant as a gift for the prince from another customer. The Baroness, alarmed, asks if that customer has a daughter of marriageable age. When our protagonist confirms, she realizes the rival's intent, to win the prince's favor through this rare delicacy. In desperation, she offers to pay 10 times the price. Oh Jin, feigning nobility, refuses to sell for money alone, claiming that their trade is guided by the pursuit of truth, love, health, and peace. Selina suppresses a sigh at his performance, while the Baroness feels ashamed for exposing her greed before such admirable people. Adrian intervenes again, suggesting that surely compassion requires selling the goods to someone in greater need. The Baroness looks at him, touched, while our hero reluctantly agrees to make an exception and sell the chickpeas. Before she leaves, Oh Jin warns her of a crucial precaution. The chickpeas, he claims, contain the mana of the great big fire chicken, the divine ancestor of all fire chickens. Therefore, anyone consuming them must avoid all chicken-related foods for a time, or else suffer reversed effects: rapid aging, disease, constipation, and hair loss. Though none of this is true, the Baroness is horrified. The thought of being unable to eat chicken torments her, but the fear of losing her youth is even worse. She decides to keep the beans and abide by the restriction. Adrian jokes about older men obsessed with vitality, and our protagonist plays along, mocking the superstition. The Baroness nervously agrees, calling the obsession with fire chicken outdated. Later, back at the clinic, the plan succeeds. Pop is safe. Tear beams with relief and gratitude, thanking our hero for saving her companion. Oh Jin smiles, saying it was nothing, and hands her a custom carrier made from the money gained from Baroness Clays. He explains that it will help prevent future mishaps. Tear, moved, calls him her lifelong benefactor. Our protagonist laughs modestly, saying she can call on him anytime for help. Meanwhile, the mandrake sulks in jealousy as Pop enjoys the attention. Oh Jin offers Tear a part-time job caring for animals, and she eagerly accepts. Just as the mood lightens, Pop suddenly tries to swallow the mandrake whole, sending everyone into a panic. After restraining him and securing him in the cage, our protagonist reminds Tear not to bring Pop along when she starts work. Turning to Adrian, our hero hands him payment for his cooperation. Adrian is surprised by the amount, but Oh Jin quickly clarifies that medical, lodging, and other fees have been deducted, leaving only 312 silver. Adrian, outraged, grabs our boy by the collar, calling him a con artist for charging so much. Selina interrupts, reminding Adrian that the treatment was effective. Adrian immediately shifts tone, complimenting her skill and thanking her for the recovery he felt after taking her prescribed medicine. Selina promises him an additional prescription to maintain his condition, and he accepts with a smile. After Adrian leaves, Selina questions whether it was wise to let him go. Our protagonist admits that Adrian's medical abilities are decent and that he works well with her. Still, he brushes off the idea of recruiting him for now. Selina remarks that his greed for money has reached its peak and predicts that Oh Jin will soon regret this decision. Prince Theo sips his tea, listening as talk of the upcoming hunting competition drifts through the room. Baron Doyle kneels in apology, explaining that he has searched for an opportunity to secure the Monoceros, but the hospital is never empty. Theo scorns such half measures and demands a bolder plan, to present Sunja the Monoceros proudly before everyone and seize power with its aid. He warns the Baron that failure will leave him in a perilous position. A sudden commotion interrupts. The Baron's pet, Magma, grows restless at feeding time and lunges for a dish of chickpeas brought in by a servant. The wolf devours them, prompting Theo to erupt in anger while the Baron bows and vows restitution, promising tenfold amends as he scrambles to appease the prince. Meanwhile, at Oh Jin's clinic, a recent surgical patient is recovering. The staff warn owners that accidents can happen as animals wake from anesthesia and caution them to watch closely. Tear returns with concerns about Pop's younger sibling, Cheap, who is lethargic and coughing. Oh Jin examines Cheap, notes a mild cold with muscle weakness, prescribes daily medication, and urges careful care. When Tear returns the next day reporting no improvement, and that her dog has now fallen ill too, Our protagonist recognizes the same symptoms across different species and decides to hospitalize both animals to prevent further spread. Within days, the pattern repeats. Animals from different households arrive with identical signs. Our hero realizes this is more than a simple cold and urgently instructs pet owners to cover their noses and mouths, avoid touching things with hands that have handled sick animals, and to wear gloves. He separates symptomatic animals to the second floor and keeps others on the first. Despite the symptoms being mild, medication brings no progress, and the disease is entirely indifferent to species. Selena warns that at this rate, the outbreak will soon become widespread. Her prediction proves true. The clinic overflows, with desperate owners pleading for care. Forced to turn some patients away, our protagonist watches as every nearby hospital reaches capacity. Lord Baron arrives in a panic about his indoor pet, Elizabeth, who, he insists, should not have contracted anything. A newly acquired turtle is revealed as the likely carrier. Baron inquires about nearby empty properties, and a vacant building in the back alley is offered as a temporary annex. Realizing the scale of the crisis, our hero accepts the loan and suddenly finds himself running a second facility alone, treating patients across 2 sites and wondering how he can possibly manage without another doctor. Over at Adrian's hospital, he notices an empty ward and asks why patients are scarce. His assistant explains that the town is facing an infectious outbreak and predicts a call for support. Soon after, a letter arrives from Oh Jin requesting aid. Bring spare medicines and equipment, with a curt offer of 2 gold per hour and a potential performance bonus. Adrian initially bristles at the tone, intent on burning the presumptuous letter, but then he sees a line mentioning Selena collapsing from overwork. Conscience overrides pride. Adrian announces he will leave until the war against the pandemic is over, reasoning that where disaster strikes, a doctor must go. His assistant falls silent, recognizing the gravity of the decision. The first epidemic sweeps across the land, prompting Pio to gather everyone inside the clinic and announce strict isolation measures. Any animal showing symptoms must be quarantined, and unnecessary outings are to be avoided. Questions arise about when each patient's cough began, and records quickly pile up. Adrian continues examining patients after 12 hours of non-stop work, noting swollen throats but, in some cases, ruling out the epidemic. Selena is buried in 26 hours of drug testing, while our protagonist tends to a weak rabbit after 18 hours of continuous treatment, gently finishing the checkup as exhaustion weighs on the entire staff. Schwein arrives with Max, reporting that 2 more cases have appeared among the hunting dogs scheduled for the upcoming competition. The inpatient ward overflows, and Tyr informs our boy there's no more room. Still, Oh Jin insists on finding space and continues searching for a cure, assuring everyone that they will do their best. Schwein thanks him, while Adrian questions why they keep admitting patients beyond capacity. Our hero answers through his actions, unwilling to turn anyone away. Pio reports that some guardians are demanding to discharge their pets, thinking mild coughing is harmless. Oh Jin rejects the idea, explaining that neglect could lead to irreversible damage, especially for working animals like hunting dogs, which would be abandoned if they lose their value. He firmly believes all animals deserve equal care, regardless of their usefulness. Late into the night, our protagonist experiments with antibiotics infused with dragon's power, but all attempts fail. Meanwhile, Selena warns him to stop before overusing the dragon's energy strains his heart. He blames mana instability, and even considers learning alternative medicine. Selena points out that he hasn't slept in 3 days before knocking him unconscious for a forced rest. 5 hours later, Oh Jin wakes in a daze, being fed by Tyr with fresh food. He realizes the egg is from Pop, a healthy chicken who hasn't caught the epidemic. Tyr mentions that both Pop and Sunja are fine despite exposure. Suddenly, our hero connects the dots, running through every possible shared trait, diet, blood type, temperament, until his eyes fix on Sunja, who is being spat on by the mandrake, just as the mandrake spat on Pop. That's why Sunja and Pop didn't develop the infection. Using a sample of mandrake saliva mixed with that of an infected animal, Oh Jin observes the gray experimental leaves turn green, confirming a cure. The clinic erupts in relief as our protagonist and the team praise the mandrake for saving countless lives. Now comes the issue of mass production. The team debates methods, pressing, diluting, but Selena prepares a sweet nutrient drink mixed with diuretics. The mandrake gulps it eagerly, saliva dripping from its leaves in abundance. Oh Jin marvels at how quickly they can now collect the essence and begin synthesizing the medicine. By morning, the epidemic subsides. Max's cough fades and his strength returns. Our boy feels deep relief while administering the final vaccine doses. As he finishes the last prescription, heavy knocks thunder against the clinic door. Voices from outside announce that Lord Baron has arrived and demand our hero's arrest. Baron arrives at the clinic with his men, drawing a confused crowd that murmurs questions about the scene. Oh Jin opens the door calmly, meeting the Baron's gaze as the noble declares his arrest for spreading an animal epidemic and exploiting treatment fees. Our hero's expression tightens, recalling the lie he once spun to protect Sunja. He points to Sunja's fading M-shaped mark as proof of his success, recognizing that the accusation is just a pretext. The Baron's true goal is to seize Sunja. Pio steps forward, defending Oh Jin's integrity, but the Baron dismisses his words angrily. Our protagonist ends the argument, agreeing to go quietly, but insisting on sedating Sunja first. The Baron hesitates, then relents. Oh Jin quietly signals Selena to prepare for an escape using magic. Selena misunderstands, readying herself to strike instead. Once Sunja is sedated and placed in the cage, a faint light flickers from our protagonist's ring finger, the signal. Selena acts, not with magic, but with a sudden punch that sends one of the Baron's men collapsing. She grabs Sunja and flees into the crowd. The Baron orders his men to pursue, prioritizing the cat over Oh Jin. Our hero recognizes their intent, confirming his suspicions. The Baron seizes Oh Jin by the collar, threatening destruction, but Pio steps in, refusing to let the clinic be damaged. Adrian moves forward to shield Pio, forcing the Baron to withdraw under the watchful eyes of the onlookers. The men take Oh Jin away. Our boy entrusts the clinic to Pio and Adrian, hoping that Selena can keep Sunja safe. Rumors soon ripple through the city that Oh Jin, once the hero who fought the Monoxerous, is responsible for the epidemic. The Baron announces a public trial, drawing attention from every corner. In prison, our protagonist rests briefly after days of exhaustion, until the Baron and his wolves arrive. The Baron demands the location of the cat and the elf. Oh Jin remains silent, inwardly relieved, knowing that Selena and Sunja have escaped. The Baron threatens violence, gesturing toward his growling wolves. Our hero observes Magma trembling, his posture uneven and signs of pain clear. He examines the wolf briefly, noting blood in the urine and lethargy. Diagnosis reveals a severe hernia, neglected for far too long. Oh Jin concludes that immediate surgery is necessary to save the animal's life. Outside the mansion, Selena hides with Sunja, who grows increasingly restless. Selena steadies her grip, whispering reassurance with quiet determination that our hero is still unharmed. Oh Jin diagnoses Magma with a hernia and immediately orders the wolf to be moved to a clean room for emergency surgery. He directs the preparation of tools, medicine, and anesthesia, maintaining a calm authority as the procedure begins. Once anesthesia has taken effect and the area is disinfected, our hero starts the operation with steady precision. The Baron stands nearby, watching anxiously, while a servant hands over a protective apron and gloves to minimize infection risk. Throughout the surgery, our protagonist keeps tight control, requesting temperature checks, timing the next dose of anesthesia, and insisting on proper sterilization of each instrument. The Baron grows tense, unsure whether to trust Oh Jin's judgment, and outside the room, he finds himself questioning the diagnosis, until a memory surfaces of Magma's mother, who died with similar symptoms. Staring at her portrait, realization dawns that she too suffered from the same condition. Meanwhile, in the Baron's office, petitions demanding Oh Jin's release begin to pile up. Among them is a letter from Lady Marianne Astrid's family, threatening to report the Baron's false accusations to the king unless our protagonist is freed. Servants voice their outrage, alarmed by the mounting backlash. The surgery concludes successfully. The Baron rushes to see his companion breathing steadily as Oh Jin calmly explains the regimen. A week of medication and a future appointment for suture removal. Finally, exhaustion overtakes our hero, and he collapses onto a nearby sofa, succumbing to sleep after days of relentless work. The Baron notices the raw marks left by handcuffs on Oh Jin's wrists and quietly instructs that they not be used again. Back in prison, our protagonist drifts into a dream. He finds himself surrounded by the warmth of home. His parents' voices echo faintly. His mother frets that his clinic must be struggling again, while his father laments his stubbornness, recalling how Oh Jin rejected medical school to become a veterinarian. He questions what's so noble about tending to animals, yet our hero, in the dream, feels only peace. An animal appears, pressing against him, something between a cat and a lion, warm and comforting. Elsewhere, Theo confronts the Baron about the missing Monoceros. The Baron reports that it was taken by the Etherian Order, revealing that Selena was an agent of theirs. Reports confirm her involvement with suspicious groups of elves. Theo's anger erupts, condemning the Baron's incompetence. The Baron apologizes and, hesitantly, asks whether Oh Jin should now be released, mentioning the mounting complaints from both nobles and commoners. Theo, weary of the matter, allows him to decide. At the mansion, our hero is freed. Before leaving, he instructs the servants to return with Magma in 3 days for stitch removal and hands over a list of precautions. A servant mentions another patient, a hunting dog with bad knees, and our protagonist agrees to examine it soon. Stepping outside, Oh Jin finds his friends waiting at the gate. Shock and relief wash over him as they reveal they were prepared to storm the castle if his release had been delayed any longer. He thanks them, and moments later, Sunja, Mandrake, and Pop rush forward, enveloping him in a joyous embrace. Selena stands nearby, safe and smiling. Holding Sunja close, our hero recalls his dream and the figure so much like her, reaffirming his conviction that becoming a veterinarian was the right choice. From a window inside the mansion, the Baron watches silently. His servant nervously asks if they are truly letting Oh Jin go. The Baron's gaze lingers on the scene as the servant insists something strange happened in the cell, Monochorous was seen licking the doctor's face before vanishing. The Baron brushes off the claim, though inwardly his thoughts betray a deep uncertainty, declaring Oh Jin the winner of their conflict. Days later, a sealed envelope arrives at the Baron's desk, a detailed surgical bill from our hero. Reading it, the Baron grips the paper with white knuckles, swearing never to forgive him. In the morning, Adrian arrives at the clinic, greeting Selina as he presents the herbs she requested earlier. Oh Jin, watching from afar, wonders why Adrian has returned yet again. Selina examines the bundle, surprised that such rare herbs were found out of season. Adrian, confident, declares that nothing is beyond his reach. She hands him another list, which he accepts eagerly. As Selina inspects the supplies, Adrian comments on their excellent quality, especially praising a sprig of spincha, only to realize it has vanished from his hand. The culprit is Bloop, the small blob creature now chewing on the herb. Adrian scolds it and reaches out to retrieve the plant, but Bloop bites his finger, splits into three, and smacks him across the face. Glaring, Adrian mutters that creatures truly resemble their owners, and every animal raised by our hero has a bad temper. Selina corrects him, declaring Bloop as her child, which prompts Adrian to remark that no wonder it has such fine taste in herbs. Bloop smirks mischievously, and Adrian freezes, realizing the creature just smiled at him. Selina places Bloop into a cage to contain his antics. Inside the clinic, Bloop, also known as Ping Ping, is no ordinary blob. He narrates his dominion with pride, claiming the herb room on the second floor as his territory. Among the hundreds of animals passing through each day, only two beings truly hold authority, himself and Kim Sunja, Oh Jin's right hand and the hospital's enforcer. Though Sunja possesses unmatched physical strength, she dares not provoke him. Within Ping Ping's forehead lies a vision core capable of multiplying his body infinitely, spreading calamity upon those who anger him. When they first met, Sunja sensed his danger and attacked, but Ping Ping revealed his power, silencing all resistance. Since then, he has lived comfortably under Selina's protection, sharing rule over the clinic with Sunja. Later that day, an owner rushes into the clinic with a lifeless pet struck by a carriage, pleading for help. Oh Jin examines the small body, finds the airway clear, and orders timed compressions. He performs CPR methodically, ignoring the owner's disbelief. Moments later, the animal coughs and breathes again. Shock turns to awe as the owners proclaim it a miracle, while Ping Ping observes from his cage, marveling at our hero's ability to bring life back from death. Oh Jin requests a single leaf from Mandal. Ping Ping, disdainful, recalls Mandal's lowly status as Sunja's minion and mocks its pitiful dancing. Mandal glares back, prompting Ping Ping to taunt him further, amused by the lack of response. Night descends, and Ping Ping resumes his self-imposed training, running on his wheel until he divides into 3 copies, creating chaos throughout the clinic. He admires his stronghold, a cozy setup gifted by our protagonist as a sign of loyalty, perfectly positioned for temperature and humidity. His satisfaction turns to fury when he discovers his stronghold damaged beyond recognition. He immediately suspects Mandal, who smirks from a distance. Rage flares as Ping Ping accuses him of defiance. Mandal, empowered by recent medicinal herb enhancements, stands his ground. Ping Ping mocks him for daring to challenge his superior, then launches an attack. Mandal dodges and Ping Ping crashes backward. Assessing his opponent, Ping Ping notes the improvement in Mandal's body and resilience, but reminds him that without his pot, he is nothing, a plant doomed to wither. With a swift blow, Ping Ping shatters Mandal's pot, sending him to the floor in despair. Declaring dominance, Ping Ping demands that he kneel. Mandal glares up, desperate and furious, preparing his secret weapon, a sonic shriek capable of rupturing eardrums. Ping Ping senses danger, tries to cover his ears, and realizes his stubby arms cannot reach them. The attack fails, producing only a weak, trembling sound. Ping Ping mocks Mandal's silence, satisfied at his opponent's downfall. Moments later, our hero enters, drawn by the commotion. He surveys the mess and the fallen Mandal with his broken pot, immediately understanding what happened. Kneeling beside the crying plant, he soothes it gently, assuring it will be fine. Lifting the fragments of the pot, Oh Jin smiles faintly and decides it's time to repot Mandal once again. After receiving an excess of supergrowth serum, Mandal grows to 1.5 times his original height. Our hero prepares a larger pot for him, layering it with top-grade soil and finishing with premium organic nutrients. Yet, as Mandal settles into his new home, he quickly appears unwell. Oh Jin examines him closely, puzzled by the lack of response. Selina, watching silently, suddenly plucks one of Mandal's leaves. The action startles our protagonist, who turns in shock. A quiet cry erupts from Mandal, echoing through the clinic. He flinches, covering his ears, while Selina freezes, equally startled. After a tense silence, Mandal gives a weak response. Our boy concludes that frequent removal from his pot dulled Mandal's voice, and reassures him it will return naturally over time. The following day, Mandal looks even worse, leaves drooping, surface pale, and signs of accelerated aging spreading. Oh Jin's worry deepens, fearing Mandal might wither completely. Selina wonders if the fertilizer was insufficient and suggests adding more, but before she can act, Pio steps in, warning against ignorance. She insists that replacing the entire soil caused Mandal's rejection. The soil, familiar to Mandal, is like his lifeblood. Replacing it all at once left him too weak to adapt. Had they delayed treatment, Mandal would not have survived. Pio takes charge, ordering immediate corrective steps. All leaves are to be removed to conserve moisture, and Mandal is placed in a ventilated area shielded from sunlight to suppress photosynthesis. Oh Jin quietly encourages Mandal to endure the next few days, promising recovery. That night, under the moonlight, Mandal stands silent and still, weeping softly from his stem. Ping Ping waddles over cheerfully, unaware of the tension, and demands a playful kick. Before he can act, our protagonist catches him mid-motion. Suddenly, realization dawns. Ping Ping stole the missing medicinal herbs. Oh Jin scolds him for greed and carelessness, pointing out his excessive weight gain. Ping Ping retaliates by biting his fingers. At that moment, Sunja appears and strikes Ping Ping across the head. The mark on Ping Ping's body flares to life, glowing intensely. Our boy panics, recognizing the dangerous surge of energy, and pleads for the reaction to stop. His necklace suddenly shines with radiant light, enveloping Ping Ping in a containment barrier. The mark's power, his division core, is absorbed into the necklace. Oh Jin stumbles backward as the energy disperses across the room, one pulse striking Mandal's pot. Mandal instantly revives. Color returns, his form grows vibrant, and he begins to sway as if dancing. Our protagonist stares in disbelief. Selena explains that the energy from Ping Ping's division core triggered rapid cell division in Mandal, causing extraordinary regeneration and accelerated growth. Pio celebrates Mandal's recovery, relief evident on her face. Oh Jin laughs quietly as tension dissolves. Selena picks up the exhausted Ping Ping, assuring him his core is safe and will restore with time. Our boy warns not to feed Mandal's leaves to Ping Ping again. While Selena acknowledges the brilliance of the division core that saved them all, she quietly credits her master for its creation. In the Western Forest, there is a ghost story known as the Tale of the Legless Beauty. She is said to appear as a beautiful woman with long hair, but in reality, she is a man-eating monster with sharp teeth and no hind legs. Crawling on her front legs, she appears whenever she hears a baby cry. Some say she is the vengeful spirit of a yokai who went mad after losing her child. Pio tells the story with conviction, insisting it is true, but Oh Jin dismisses it as absurd and baseless. Pio sticks to her claim, while our hero questions the lack of witnesses. Then Selena reveals she encountered signs of the creature in the Western Forest a week earlier. Traces of something crawling on its front legs marked the ground. The eerie presence had driven people away, allowing her to gather herbs in peace. Oh Jin becomes uneasy, and suddenly a scratching sound comes from the door. Both Pio and our protagonist are startled, while Selena remarks that it sounds like someone is there. Despite their warnings not to open it, she swings the door wide, revealing Max. Our boy is startled and notices Max holding Mr. Schwein's clothes in his mouth, suspecting something may have happened to Schwein and follows Max to find out. When he reaches Schwein, he finds him safe and well. Schwein greets him and asks what brings him there. Oh Jin, relieved, thanks him. Schwein identifies the fabric as a piece of Max's comfort toy, realizing the dog must have been bored because he had been too busy lately. While in the forest, our protagonist notices that Schwein is working late. Schwein points to a net hanging in a tree. A kitten is trapped inside. He explains that poachers have been active in the Western Forest, setting nets everywhere, and young animals keep getting caught. One kitten is hanging too high for him to reach, so he goes to fetch a pole. While waiting, Oh Jin notices marks on the tree, deep scratches, as if something had clawed at it. Schwein also observes that the footprints around the tree are strange, resembling those of a creature crawling only on its front legs. Both grow uneasy, remembering the ghost story. Suddenly they hear the sound of crying. Our hero asks Schwein to stop making that noise, admitting he hates things like this. Schwein denies it, but the crying sound grows closer. Then a figure appears, and both freeze, fearing the legless monster has come. Instead, it is a fox. Oh Jin notices its hind legs are injured, explaining the dragging footprints. The trapped kitten continues to cry from above, and the fox barks at it, clawing at the tree. Our protagonist realizes the fox is reacting to the cries and suspects it plans to eat the kitten. The crying continues, and the net begins to shake. Suddenly the cage falls. Oh Jin rushes forward, catching it just in time. Relieved, he looks inside and sees that it is not a kitten, but a fox cub, and it is already dead. A sound behind our protagonist makes him turn. The large fox stands there, preparing to attack. Oh Jin realizes he let his guard down. Suddenly, Selena appears and shoots the fox with a tranquilizer. The animal collapses, unconscious. Selena checks our hero for injuries and finds him unharmed. She had arrived just moments earlier, drawn by curiosity about the rumored creature, which has now revealed itself as a celestial fox. Oh Jin examines the fox closely, confirming its identity and noting numerous wounds across its body, including gunshot injuries on the hind legs. Selena inspects it as well, observing that it must have given birth recently. Its glands are swollen, and there are faint traces of suckling, suggesting it has not nursed for some time. Our hero realizes that the dead fox cub in the net must be its child. The fox cub was killed by hunters who cursed their luck, disappointed that it wasn't fully grown. Still, they decided the white fur would fetch a good price. Before they could take it away, the mother's furious cry pierced the forest as she lunged at them, forcing the hunters to flee. In the silence that followed, she approached her cub's body, only to see a small cat emerge beside it, softly meowing. She gathered her injured cub and lay down in the rain as the cub weakly nursed. Later that night, the mother opened her eyes again. While she slept, the same cat appeared nearby. The baby fox crawled toward it, and the two began to play, until, in the next instant, both were caught in a net. The mother woke to the sound, spotting her cub trapped high in the branches, and cried helplessly beneath the tree. Now, in the present, the mother fox thrashes violently on the clinic floor. Our hero struggles to hold her still, but she sinks her teeth into his arm. Reacting quickly, he injects a tranquilizer into her neck. Her body tenses, then slowly relaxes as he keeps her from tearing open her stitches. Morning comes, and a low growl echoes through the waiting room, drawing attention. Sunja crawls closer, trying to peek inside the treatment room where the sound originates. It has been 3 days since the fox was admitted, yet she still goes berserk each time she wakes, her body already building a tolerance to the sedatives. Pio quietly wonders if the fox doesn't realize her cub is dead, but our protagonist disagrees. The cub's body had been lifeless for several days. If the mother had remained nearby, she must have known. Our boy notices the stitches tearing open again, the wound refusing to heal, as if her body mirrors the torment in her mind. Trauma, Oh Jin reflects, exists in animals too. Trapped in memories of pain and anger, they attack themselves and the world around them, like the monsters in Western ghost tales. The kitten rescued alongside the fox has recovered after IV fluids. Still fragile, it needs careful monitoring. Our hero reminds Pio to keep its temperature steady and ensure it stays far from the fox's cage. Pio agrees and goes to replace the kitten's cold water bottle with a warm one. The kitten mews softly, glancing toward the mother fox's cage. When Pio returns with the heating pad, she freezes. The cage door hangs open. The kitten is gone. Panic floods her as she spots it inside the fox's enclosure, nestled against the mother's body. Pio alerts our protagonist immediately, fearing the worst. In the fox's unstable condition, any movement could turn fatal. But when they rush in, they find the kitten pressed against the fox, suckling quietly. The fox stirs, her eyes flicker open, and a tear slips down her face. Instead of lashing out, she lowers her head and gently licks the tiny creature. The entire room stands still, stunned by the sight of a wounded predator finding peace in the warmth of another life. The next day, the kitten dashes across the clinic floor, dragging Pio's glove between its teeth. Pio half-heartedly reaches for it before giving up as the kitten scampers straight toward the fox's cage. She decides to retrieve it later. What matters more is the fox itself. Its recovery, once stagnant, has become astonishing. Wounds that had refused to close now knit cleanly, and its rest is no longer plagued by nightmares. Pio marvels at the progress. Unable to believe the creature once thought crippled, now moves its paws again. The nerves, still alive, have begun to regenerate. Our hero watches quietly, reflecting that he cannot restore all that humans have taken, but at least he can return a fragment of what was lost. When the fox and kitten are finally released, they step into the forest together. He bids them farewell in silence, hoping never to meet again under such painful circumstances. The fox glances back once, as if in acknowledgement, before vanishing into the trees. In time, rumors about the monster in the western forest fade away. A gentler tale takes their place, a story of a white fox roaming with a small cat always by its side. Meanwhile, in the clinic, the mandrake stretches proudly in its pot, drawing curious stares. Visitors whisper about the strange radish-like plant moving on its own, speculating whether it's the hospital's guardian spirit. Some insist it's a mandrake, while others claim the true guardian is a terrifying cat rumored to silence even wild beasts. Annoyed by the chatter, the mandrake stomps toward Sunja's food bowl and flips it over in defiance. The crowd gasps. How dare it challenge the cat's authority? Their shock deepens when Sunja herself appears, eyes glinting. The mandrake freezes in dread as she advances. She leaps forward, but instead of attacking, coughs up a hairball right on top of it. Confusion ripples through the onlookers until our protagonist calmly explains that cats often swallow loose fur while grooming, which later clumps and is expelled by vomiting. Realizing how little he's brushed her lately, he decides it's time for a proper grooming session. An hour later, Sunja's fur still seems endless. The shedding piles grow higher, and our hero begins to worry the cat might go bald at this rate. Then, a small patch of bare skin catches his eye. Examining it closely, he realizes with a pang of dismay that it could be fungal dermatitis. The thought stings. How could a veterinarian overlook his own cat's condition? He takes out a carefully crafted tool, built by the finest craftsman in town, the world's first manual pet clipper. Though unnecessary for treatment, he feels compelled to use it. As he begins clipping, Sunja hisses and bolts from the table. The moment calls for restraint. but the doctor in him refuses to retreat. A vet must never back down in a battle of wills with an animal. Summoning his resolve, he steadies himself, whispering soft reassurances as he continues. Sunja writhes and cries, but he presses on gently, determined to finish quickly for her sake. Then, without warning, her neck begins to glow. Light spreads, flooding the clinic with a radiant brilliance visible even from outside. Startled, our protagonist steps back as a magic circle forms beneath her. From within the circle, Kalian materializes, not a projection, but the man himself. Later, over tea, our boy recounts everything. Kalian listens intently, then explains that Sunja's condition isn't a disease at all, but a natural phase of shedding. Monoceros undergo cycles of rapid growth, during which they shed their fur completely. To renew their vitality, they must purify themselves in the pond of sable. If they fail to do so, the fur may fall, but never return. Our hero realizes with quiet concern that the beloved mascot of his clinic, the cat adored by every visitor, is suffering from severe hair loss. Kalian observes the condition calmly, explaining that while it poses no major health risk, it will simply take time for the fur to grow back. The reassurance does little to ease Oh Jin's determination. He resolves to find the pond of sable immediately, convinced it will help his companion recover. Kalian clarifies that the pond is not a single fixed location, but a type of lake rich in mana and spiritual energy, home to sable seals that feed on it. There is one in the Belmore region, though it lies within a protected zone controlled by the Etherian Order, perilous for ordinary travelers. Unfazed, our protagonist insists they depart at dawn. Selena voices her concern, warning that the journey is dangerous, but Kalian agrees to act as their guide. He asks about the clinic, yet Oh Jin assures him the patients will be fine. Adrian will oversee everything in his absence. By morning, they reach the western forest. The land feels like a living myth, dense, hushed, haunted by countless ghost stories. Strange lights shimmer between the trees, and even the air hums with mana. Few dare to walk here. Soon they spot a red flower slithering, and Kalian notes that the lake must be close. Oh Jin crouches beside an unfamiliar blossom, remarking on its unusual shape, but Selena warns him not to touch it. The sable seals release toxins when disturbed, and countless other dangers hide among the roots. Suddenly, Sunja trots up proudly, a snake dangling from her jaws. Our boy bends down, stroking her in praise while Selena carefully removes the snake. The serpent's body bears a distorted human face, a face snake, rare and deadly. Oh Jin shudders at the sight and quickly places Sunja inside her case to keep her out of further mischief. Kalian chuckles quietly, noting that the cat looks thoroughly offended by the restraint. When they reach the lake, the surface glows with soft luminescence, mana swirling beneath like liquid starlight. Even our protagonist, accustomed to the extraordinary, is briefly left speechless. Entranced by its beauty, he decides to enter the water alone. Kalian protests, warning it's too dangerous, but Oh Jin insists. Cats become extremely wary when exposed, and the presence of others would only cause more distress. She barely tolerated being groomed. A bath would be even worse. Kalian relents, invoking the blessing of the water spirits. His chant summons the protection of Celestian, cloaking Oh Jin in enchantment and granting him gills that shimmer faintly under the mana light. Now untouched by danger, our hero takes a steady breath, steeling himself. Joking under his breath, he admits he would rather pass out than face what comes next. Still, he gathers Sunja in his arms, coaxing her gently with treats as they descend into the glowing pond. The cat's paws skim the surface, and instead of panic, calm spreads across her features. The sight amazes him. A thought forms. Perhaps this is the mythical water attribute cat, the kind said to appear only to those whose families have performed 3 generations of good deeds. Sunja drifts gracefully beneath the water, her fur glinting like flowing silver. The sight melts our hero's composure, leaving him wishing for the conveniences of his old world. Cameras, barbecues, cold beer, or coffee, anything to preserve the moment. The lake sparkles around them with bubbles of mana that burst like carbonated light. As our protagonist brushes her fur, it begins to peel away in translucent waves, as if she were shedding not just hair but skin. Oh Jin marvels at the transformation until the soap slips from his grasp, drifting toward a patch of strange flowers. Reaching instinctively, our boy realizes too late that he has touched the poisonous Sebelsia. A sting flashes across his hand, and the world blurs. The water collapses into darkness. When Oh Jin opens his eyes, he's no longer in the lake, but in an unfamiliar place. Our protagonist looks around in confusion, whispering to himself in disbelief. Then, a massive paw rests on his shoulder. Turning slowly, he finds a lion standing behind him, its golden eyes calm and unblinking. He freezes, the question forming on his lips. Who is this creature that stands before him?